Welcome back to another edition of the Rodcast Monday Fun Edition. Hope everybody out there had a great holiday weekend. Certainly a really fun holiday weekend for myself. We'll get into my man Patrick and what he did over the holiday weekend. It's been a long time. Glad to be back with you, but hope your 4th of July holiday was as great as mine. Hope you had a relaxing 4th of July weekend, and hope you got in some hot dogs, and hope you got a chance to be around some water. I know that's a big thing for some folks. Hope you got a chance to get on the grill, whatever is your thing. We're back at it here on Monday. We got a lot to get into on the show. Of course, you had 4 days of sports that we didn't get into, so we'll try to look back a little bit. But big news in the NBA: the Spurs continue to make moves. We'll talk about that. They make a trade. Spurs are going to look a whole lot more competitive this upcoming season. And we'll talk about that with our resident Spurs fan. We'll also get into some Cowboys news. There was a little Cowboys drama over the holiday break. Of course, there always is about Dak Prescott, but no drama. That was clarified. So we'll get into some Cowboys discussion coming up in the second hour of the show. We'll also go behind the burnt orange curtain. Longhorns lost out on a big recruit. Everybody was pretty confident that they were gonna get in the 2025 class. Big time recruit who decides to go to the Oregon Ducks, who are making a lot of moves. So we'll talk about that too coming up as we go behind the burnt orange curtain. Also, Longhorns did get a commitment though from a DB in the H-Town area. Actually, I know this young man, so we'll get into that too coming up a little bit later on in the show. We also have some NFL discussion. We'll dive into some NFL news, notes, and nuggets when we get into Rod's rant of the day. We got your usual favorites. We got what the facts, what the stats. We got the topic for the big fat poll of the day. We got off the record. We got who said that. So all your usual favorites on the show coming up. Before we do any of that, let's introduce you to the rest of the crew. He is one of the hardest working members of the ARN family. Got a hustler spirit, period. Not sure what he's paid, but I'm pretty damn sure the man is underpaid. Ain't no 401k for this hustler, and he's a hustle man of many talents. It's our friend, it's our co-host, it's our neighbor. It's Patrick Davis, y'all. What's going on, brother? How are you?
I'm doing good. Glad to be back on a Monday. Glad I showed up. Had the good old wake up out of a dream where I was dreaming that I had overslept on Monday and forgot to reset the alarm because the alarm was off over the last couple days, and then had that dream and then wake up and it's like it's 2:30 in the morning. I've not overslept at all. You're fine. You're fine. Just that fun and heart racing.
But then interrupted your sleep, interrupted your REM. You were deep in REM at the time.
I was deep in REM at that time. We got out of it. But I will say, I do have a great story that happened over the weekend. I have to give a shout out to a savior of ours over the weekend.
Okay, nice.
Went out on my friend's boat on Friday. He gets his boat. He goes, I'm picking my boat up from the shop. We're going to go down, launch it out. Hope you can come on down and hang out with us. So we went out. There's 4 or 5 of us on the boat. We're going out in the lake to have a day, and we pull it in the water. We're good. We take off. As we're going, we're like, something feels wrong. Like the boat's not powerful enough, and then it's like something's weird. It sounds wrong. Like he just got out of the shop, so he's like, I don't know what's up. So we're like, something's wrong. So we slow down, and he goes and looks, and we're taking on water. We are sinking. This is like 20 minutes into 10 to 20 minutes into this, we are already sinking. We're like, this is not good. Like something is wrong from the boat. So we go over and we pull off over to where we're like, look, we just got to get to where if we sink, the water's not very high. The boat will just sit,
near the shore.
Just
near the shore.
So we go over near the shore, and as we're sitting there trying to figure out what's happening, and he's calling the guy who worked on the boat to be like, what did you do that is somehow screwed up the boat? Well, he's calling, a guy comes up and he's like, you can't be here. And we're like, oh God. So we're going to deal with this. We're like, hey man, I'm sorry, sir. We're sorry.
You can't be here.
We're sorry. We're sinking. So like,
I know. Thank you. Did you let him know you were saying, sir?
Obviously
we did. Not
once we did, sinking. Once we did, guy's super nice, right? After we did, he understood what it was. I think he just had partiers there the day before or whatever else. It's around 4th of July. So he was just like, I don't want you coming in here and playing music and drinking over here.
Yeah, I got you.
If you got a problem, you're fine. And so then he comes over, and then he's like, we're talking to him a little bit. We talk, he walks away, and he comes back and helps us out with something. Then he goes, oh, you need this plug? He walks away, comes back with the exact piece we need that the mechanic forgot to put back. And he goes, here you go.
Oh.
And we go put it in. The boat drains out. We're good to go. We go out and have a day, and we're like, do you want any money or anything? He's like, no, just help out the next person. So shout out to David over there on Lake Austin who helped us out.
There you go. Pay it forward, baby.
Very nice guy. So shout out to David.
That's
That
awesome.
was a
That's beautiful.
a,
So it was serviced, and then while they serviced, they forgot to put in that part, whatever it
yeah,
was.
you know, the plug
And
so your
they-
boat doesn't
yeah,
sink.
yeah, yeah.
You know, the pretty important piece
Really
of the boat.
important. No, not just a minor, not minor thing, just a really major thing. You know what? They probably want to get their 4th of July weekend started. They were probably ready.
Yeah.
I'm glad you guys got some help from a nice dude, though. So he was basically a boatman.
Yeah.
To have that part like that, you got to be a boat guy.
Yeah, because he just had an extra one, I guess, and was like,
yeah,
no.
exactly. Yeah.
Either that or he's
a
lived there
boatman.
long enough and he's like, this happens all the time.
There you go. What's his name?
David.
David. All right. Shout out to David, man. There you go, man. Hey, you know what? I love that. Didn't he told you just pay it forward? He's like, no, just pay it forward. That's all I need. You're good. Oh, there you go.
Yeah,
more,
so that was
more David in society.
That was our Friday, and then we had a decent Friday after that. It was fun after that. But yeah, that was a pretty drastic change of pace. If you go out on lake and you're like, things are gonna be fun today, we're gonna have a good old time. And then the boat might sink.
Did y'all have life jackets in there?
Yeah, we had life jackets on, but we weren't wearing it. We had time. It's not sinking like we're going down in 20 seconds.
You know what?
I think the more concerning part is also you're like, it's Lake Austin. You could swim out of Lake Austin. It's not the craziest part. I think the bigger part is you're like, well, all of our cell phones are ruined, and then the boat's under. Like, this is going to cost us. This is like a very thousands of dollars problem.
Yeah. And somebody's gonna see you guys sinking, so somebody's gonna they're just gonna be filming the whole damn thing, and not even really helping. Like, look at these guys, look at these dumb, look at these dudes. There you go. Yeah, no, what? That's good though. There you go. Just a citizen that's willing to help. I love that. That's a beautiful story, man. Great story to start off the show. Great lesson.
Let me introduce you to my co-host, who's also a good citizen. He is a proud alumni of DBU. He's got more papers than Dunder Mifflin and watches more film than Siskel and Ebert. He is the new Rodfather of Austin Sports Radio, Mr. Rod Babers.
I said, thank God you were just around a boat guy. The boat guy. Hey. It's like when they say something happens to your car, and then somebody who stops to help you. They're like, hey, I'm a handy person. I basically know about cars. I know how to fix cars.
And this is
rare these days.
This is a friend of mine that we've had multiple instances over our friendship, which is 20 plus years of things happening and just like clicking in the right way. And you're like, of all the places we could have pulled off to the side, you pull off to the one where the guy walks out and he's like, oh, I have the magical piece you need.
Yes, I have that piece. Yes, it could have been anybody else, and they'd be like, nah, sorry, can't help you guys. I mean, that's like I said, it was meant to be. It was serendipitous, I believe is the term. All right, good stuff there. All right, we'll get into my man Patrick for the headlines here, but keep in mind we're going to be getting into the Spurs, so we'll get a lot from Patrick because I want to get his thoughts about the Spurs' latest deal. They had a trade they made over the holiday break that we'll dive into a little bit. Also, we'll talk some Longhorn football. We usually don't talk recruiting, but there was a huge recruiting loss that the Longhorns took that was being announced on July 4th. The number one receiver in the country, a lot of people thought, going to Texas. I mean, he did bring, I want to say he brought like 10 family members to the official visit for Texas. So, and he brought grandma. So the assumption was, oh man, bringing grandma, bringing 10 members of your family to Texas. Oh, he's definitely going. And everybody I talked to thought that was a good chance. But no, I mean, Phil Knight in Oregon, the sugar daddy up there, he worked his magic and he's going to Oregon. So now there are a lot of people believing that Phil Knight, who is 86, Phil Knight's pretty old. If I'm not mistaken, he's like, he's getting up there, and that he basically has declared, at least that's the rumor, that, oh, no, before I pass on, we're going to get a national title here. Even if I have to spend some of these billions that I got here, that I've acquired from being the CEO of Nike, that we're gonna get it done.
Yes.
And that's just, I think Rick Newhouse threw that out there. So that's not just a theory of mine. Rick Newhouse, I believe, was talking and he threw that out there. Yeah, I mean, and it makes sense though.
He managed to be one of the people to help kill the Pac-12 and get Oregon over to the Big Ten, where he thought that it would give him a better chance to get to a national championship.
Yeah, I mean, he's a powerful man. There's no doubt about it. But yeah, that's the working theory, and that's kind of why DeCorian Moore is a part of that story. So I don't know. We will discuss it. We'll talk about it. A lot of people think that Jerry Jones should be that. I mean, we could make that transition. A lot of people thought Jerry Jones, who's getting up there in years, facing, obviously the end of his reign as the Cowboys owner and general manager, that he would be, all right, you know what, desperation. Hey, since mortality is staring me right in the face, I'm going all in. And that's not the case, really.
Well,
For
he's got 5
Jerry
more
Jones.
years before he's only 81.
No, I
Jerry
know,
Jones.
but
So
still,
he's got
well,
five
when you're
more years.
80,
No, he's got 5 more years to go all in, Rod.
I'm just so saying. I'm just saying when you get to be like 80 something else, these are just like, you know what? Hey, God bless us. You're blessed if you get to 80, honestly. And they're billionaires, so they got a lot of resources, of course. But still, man, at that point, hey, man, Father Time, it's undefeated. It's coming for you. And at 80 something years old, it can happen at any time. So you would think the desperation theory would apply, but it hasn't really applied to Jerry. So Jerry feels like he's got a lot of time. Jerry's in good shape too, by the way. He's in great shape. He's still acquiring billions and billions every year, so he's getting richer and richer. So maybe Jerry believes, hey, I got some time here. That not the case for Phil Knight. Allegedly, the rumor is that hey, he's going on, and their recruiting class kind of reflects that. So far, their 25 recruiting class, which now has affected Texas 25 recruiting class. Those Longhorns feel a certain kind of way about that. So we'll talk about it. All right, let's get into the Horn headlines first. Let's get updated. Let's get educated. Let's get informed on all the top stories of the day. Then we'll come back and discuss the Spurs trade. See, I told you guys the offseason was going to be really interesting for these Texas teams. Really, the Rockets are the only team that really hadn't done a lot, or at least made a splash. I should say done a lot. It's made a splash. They tried. They tried to go after.
I think they're still trying.
They're still trying.
They're still trying.
Yeah, they're still trying. They just haven't done it yet.
Yeah.
Spurs already made a couple of moves. Spurs, see the Spurs. I like what the Spurs are doing though. They're still leaving themselves open for the Wemby window. But hey, Spurs fans, they're made of a certain championship pedigree and DNA, and they're just not gonna suck like that for for too many years. They're not gonna. That's just not the Spurs way. So we'll get into it. We'll talk to my man Patrick about it. But first, let's get to the Horn headlines with Patrick Davis.
All right, your Horn headlines brought to you by Top Gun Rentals and Lawn Equipment. In the NBA, the Sacramento Kings acquired free agent DeMar DeRozan in a 3-year, $74 million sign-and trade deal. The Kings are trading Harrison Barnes in an unprotected 2031 pick swap to the San Antonio Spurs and Chris Duarte and 2 second-round picks to the Bulls to complete the deal. DeRozan, a 6-time All-Star who will turn 35 next month, is coming off an impressive 3-year scoring run with the Bulls, where he averaged 24 points last season. In the MLB, the Astros dropped their series to the Twins 2-1 after a Christian Vasquez walk-off home run on Sunday. The Astros are now 2 games back of Seattle for the lead in the AL West with 2 more series to go before the All-Star break. Raniel Blanco will get the start for Houston when they return to action against the Marlins on Tuesday. And the Rangers swept the Tampa Bay Rays over the weekend, including a dominant 13-2 win on Sunday. Corey Seager and Travis Janikowski both added 4 RBIs each, while Nathan Eovaldi pitched another solid start, going 7 innings, only allowing 2 runs. The Rangers begin a series with the Angels tonight, hoping to continue their winning momentum, with John Gray taking the mound. And that is your Horn headlines.
All right, thank you, Patrick, for the Horn headlines. I'm sure that you love this move by the Spurs acquiring Harrison Barnes. I just assumed that was the case because now you're looking at a starting lineup that has not only Wemby and Devin Vassell and some of the other pieces you've been Sohan, some of the other pieces you've been building with pre-Wemby, but now you got some vets, CP3 and Harrison Barnes thrown in there too. Is that the starting lineup? First of all, I don't know if I'm just assuming it wrong. Is that kind of the projected with this? Is he a walk-in starter for them, or maybe is he coming off the bench as a?
You would assume he's going to start. They had a release to make some of these deals. They had to release their cap hold on Julius Champagny, who had been their starting small forward, taking Keldon Johnson off the bench. So Keldon might technically get more minutes than Harrison Barnes. We know that Harrison Barnes, when he was with Sacramento, they tried to get Keegan Murray to take over that role. They wanted to have a younger guy because Harrison Barnes is, he's one of those guys. He's a good player. He's a veteran. He's a good guy to get on your team, but he has reached his potential. You know what he's going to be for a lot of years. There was hope that he was going to take this next step to become an all-star. He's not an all-star player, but he's still a good role player on your team. He's a good veteran now. He's 32 years old, I believe. So you bring him in. He's also got, I believe, a year or 2 left on his contract. So it's not long-term money that you're talking about bringing back with it in. And in reality, they gave up nothing for it. It's basically a free agent signing because you get a unprotected first-round pick, basically, in a pick swap that if that pick is
Yep.
better than your pick in 2031, when you hope to be in prime Wemby area, you can go ahead and take whatever pick they get. So if the Kings are not there or Minnesota is not there, you have picks in 2031 that are unprotected. If either one of those guys happen to be in the lottery, you can be taking those picks from them. So you get something like that that's, free added in by just taking off the salary because they need a ditch salary to get DeMar DeRozan. And it doesn't necessarily take them out of the sweepstakes. If they still want to try and pursue a Lauri Markkanen or a player like that, they can still do that. The Lauri Markkanen conversations were not really ever about cap room so much as they were about which players they're willing to give up in the deal. I think that's one of the big pieces is the Spurs have the most players in that could be in a Lauri Markkanen deal, but they don't want to put in a Devin Vassell. And so when you say they don't want to add in that piece that Utah is trying to get the most draft picks and players they can, that's what Danny Ainge does. He makes a lot of deals, but this is what the Spurs do is they go into trades and they're the ones when you need it, you need some cap space and you need to find a place to send a player off. You find a place in San Antonio where this is something about what the Spurs have done, where they have coaches and staff and GMs and everybody who have been with the organization for years and years. And they do not have a history of firing general managers after 2 to 3 years and firing a bunch of front office staff, which means they're more willing to make trades to get unprotected picks for 5, 6, 7 years down the road. Yeah, because they think I'm not worried about my job. And and the GMs for Sacramento says, well, if I don't win right now and go get DeMar DeRozan and help my team get better, I don't care. I'm not going to be here in 2031. Yeah, so get that pick away. They're firing me anyway. And I'll figure out if I get there and I'm still here, I'll figure it out then. But I don't care about those picks. And the Spurs are understanding picking those up. And then they become chips down the road where you hope to have that Wemby window open. And now you have a Wemby window and a bunch of picks that you either use down the road to try and keep you under that second apron and keep yourself lower cap so you're not having to constantly overpay for free agents or stars. You can get free agencies. You can get, new players in through the draft. I think it's a good trade that because you didn't give up anything. It's basically somebody who is better than a free agent you were going to get in the market. Yeah. You were able to get somebody in who gives another veteran presence. Chris Paul, they officially made that signing when free agency actually opened. They made that deal, so it's official now. Chris Paul will be there. You're able to bring in now some more help to help out some of these younger guys and bring a little bit more stability to the Spurs team that had a lot of young guys where the ceiling wasn't really huge, but they're playing for their next contract in a big way. So they maybe aren't playing the best role player team basketball at times because they have to make sure their stats are good. They're trying to prove what they can be. They're still trying to figure out the player they are. A guy like Harrison Barnes knows the player he is.
Yep. So he's plateaued already.
Yeah, and so he's not necessarily sitting there. And would he love to get another contract and get paid again? Yes. Yeah. But is he? No, he's not changing too many people's minds about it. Whereas a Julian Champagnie or a Dominic Barlow and all these guys, they're really good players because they're hungry. But when you talk about trying to play competitive playoff basketball, at some point you need to have guys that aren't all, your whole team can't all be trying to get that first big contract. They can't all be trying to get there. You have to have guys, some veterans who are already kind of established and know where their game is. So I think it's a big pickup for the Spurs to continue to build this team in a way where you didn't have to give up anybody to bring in a Harrison Barnes. And now you can work with it where if you're making a trade for some other player, you can put Harrison Barnes back in it. If you make that trade soon enough, you can add him into that trade to make salaries work. Or you can keep Harrison Barnes and keep him on your roster and have a good another piece that is going to be able to help you out. Most likely, I'd say, would be a starter along with Chris Paul. You bring Keldon Johnson off the bench like you did last year to give you a spark. We saw Stephen Castle at his first Summer League game over the weekend. He played one of the 2 games they played over the weekend. And his defense looked really good. His ball handling looked really good. The shooting for the Spurs all weekend in Summer League was not good, but his shooting wasn't terrible. It just wasn't, none of them were shooting well. And a lot of teams were not shooting well in Summer League in California. We'll see a little bit more in Vegas if they play a little bit better. But but he looked like he's a guy who could be able to go in there and work with Chris Paul. So it's an entertaining look at what the Spurs could be doing. And for a lot of Spurs fans who just wanted to make sure they did something this offseason instead of just extending that, the rebuild
the tape,
and especially in a draft where so many teams are going to be tanking this year. There's a lot of teams in that Cooper Flag sweepstakes that they think that this is a really strong draft, and there's a lot of teams that could be trying to get into those picks. The more teams you have of that, like Brooklyn literally traded away one of their best players to just get their pick back in this year so they could tank and go try and get a pick. So that's what's going to happen with a lot of teams. You don't necessarily want to be in that mix. You figure in that mix, okay, now we can maybe work our way back up and see if we can get into that playoff talk. But the West is just stacked because Sacramento now, who's in that lower tier of the playoffs, they just add DeMar DeRozan, and so their offense is looking to be really, really good. That was a question, was whether the Spurs were going to get Harrison Barnes or Kevin Huerter in this trade. That was kind of the talk. I don't know what the Spurs. I don't know if they were trying to get one or the other. But Kevin Huerter was the other name that would have made salaries worked out.
With the way the team looks now as constructed, like you said, they still can make other moves, and hell, they probably will. Do you think they compete for is a play-in team?
Yeah, I think that's the goal is around a play-in team. Now the question is, does Golden State make
the West is a beat? Yeah,
because if Golden State makes a move for Lauri Markkanen and they're able to bring that out, and he plays well with Steph Curry and Draymond Green, and they're able to make it and make a push for that play-in. We know the Lakers are around a play-in team this year as well. Like there's just a lot of good teams. The Rockets are going to be right there. There's a lot of, we talk about Utah depending on what they do if they get rid of Markkanen, but they're similar around in that spot. There's just a lot of good teams that are right in that area there's 10 good teams in the West. I mean, you could probably go 12 deep in the West right now and still say they're decent teams, and it could be play-in teams especially. New Orleans is another one you have to worry about, seeing what they're going to do. They brought in some more people, and then there's talk that they're going to trade Brandon Ingram, which you want the Spurs to trade for Brandon Ingram solely in the fact so they could have drafted Harrison Ingrams and then traded for Harrison Barnes and Brandon Ingram and just confused everybody with that. But
what are the Clippers now without Paul George? Is that
the Clippers now? But they still have Kawhi Leonard if he is healthy. He'll still be there.
Be a play
and I mean, they're still looking to trade Russell Westbrook, so we can see what they make a move for there. But they still have James Harden and Kawhi Leonard on that team, so they can still score and play defense. It's just where they're going to be. There's just a lot of really good teams in the West, so it's going to be difficult. But what you want to do is the same thing LeBron wanted to do every single year, which is just get me to the playoffs. And then we have star players, and star players can excel in these places. Can we get to the playoffs? And that's, I think, when you have a guy like Wemby, say, we just want to get Wemby to the playoffs. And then
he's that experience, so he can get that experience.
Well, he can get the experience, but you never know what can happen. I'm not trying to make any bold predictions or anything like that. But I'm simply saying down the line, when you start talking about a guy like Wemby, that he's a guy that you go, well, once you put him in the right matchup, if a team doesn't have someone to stop him, the same way Jokic is, if you don't have a guy to stop Jokic, then he's a 40 and 10 and 20 guy, 40, 20, 10 guy a night against you in the playoffs because you just don't have an answer for him. And Wemby's going to provide that matchup threat to teams that if you're not ready to stop him, it could be a problem. I'm not saying for this year, but as you keep going, you just want to get in the mix.
Yeah. I think this year, get to the play-in just for the experience. Like, it'd be great to get Wemby something, and I think to showcase Wemby. I think we all want to see Wemby in the postseason. And one thing that the Spurs do that's becoming kind of a cheat code is, and I saw this great article about this, about the pick swaps, how many pick swaps they have. So basically, over the next 7 drafts, there are currently 20 first-round picks in the next 7 drafts that are currently owed via pick swaps. And 9 of those are controlled by the Spurs and the Thunder.
Yep.
These pick swaps, and they love them. I mean, and because they're essentially a little bit of a loophole in a couple of ways. First of all, it said here that a lot of teams when trading them, they don't have for some reason, they don't feel the need to protect them. So you have a lot of unprotected pick swaps, which
Yeah.
the Spurs do. They got a ton of unprotected, and you can kind of break down why that's so valuable. And also pointed out here that it's not they're not subject to the Stepien rule, which is when you can't have back-to-back seasons without a first round pick. Like that's why they will offset them. Like they'll skip a year every time they talk about trading those first round picks. And the other reason they talked about here is that basically the Wemby, say it 5 times fast, Wemby window, the Wemby window, and the Spurs are just being right now that it gives them flexibility about when they want to start executing the Wemby window.
Yeah, and it gives them and it gives them flexibility in when you talk about having 3 picks in 2030.
Yes,
well, you can trade 2 of them and still keep one unprotected pick from somebody else and keep your pick, and you still have 2 picks in 2030, and you've traded 2 picks in 2030. So you can still acquire something with those picks and have picks to try and build a team with when your window is running and when you're trying to make a dynasty as opposed to a 5 to 6 year run.
Yep. Yeah. No, because they got 2 in 2030, 1 in 2031. Spurs got, I think, that 1 in 2026, and they got 1 in 2028.
Yeah.
So they're staggered. They got them kind of staggered, and they got them in different places. So because they don't know when the Wemby window is going to hit either. Who knows when he's going to start becoming a dominant player and when he's going to start flourishing. They don't really know the blueprint around them just yet. I like them putting veteran guys who've played in the playoffs, who've played in, deep in the postseason around him, though. Veterans like Harrison Barnes and Pop has coached Harrison Barnes actually in the Olympics too.
Yes.
Was that back in the day he coached him in the Olympics.
And this is the unprotected picks thing is really relatively new because you never used to get unprotected picks. And I think that basically at some point the prevailing thought, and this is probably an analytical thing, where what are the odds that if you protect it top 3 and that makes the trade not go through, what are the odds you're actually going to have that top 3 pick? So if you say, if we're going to risk not having this trade because we possibly could be so bad and win the lottery to be a top 3 pick, it doesn't, screw it. We'll just take the risk of that happening. And what Sam Presti in Oklahoma City and Pop and which
are from the same tree. They're all same executive tree.
Yeah, and Buford and all those guys, if they want to do that for the Spurs, those guys have long-term relationships with those teams. They have been running those teams for a long time, and they understand that most teams and general managers will leverage their future. That's 5-6 years down the road. That seems silly. We're not going to be. Who cares? We'll be figured out then. But that's when they realize we don't want your unprotected pick next season. That doesn't do us very much good because we know you're going to be good because we just gave you another player and we just helped you out. Yeah. So we want your pick down the road.
When They're gambling on the window.
We're taking a gamble on your window the same way you're gambling on your window. We're both going to take that gamble, and we're going to gamble you're not going to be there, and that this team may be in a rebuild mode but not wanting to be. Like how Brooklyn got, like how Atlanta is right now, that they love to rebuild, but they gave up everything for DeJounte Murray, so they don't own their own picks. And DeJounte Murray's not even on the team anymore. DeJounte Murray's in New Orleans now. Yeah. So, there's just there's these reasons that people are giving them more and more and more. It seems like it's going to be a bad thing. Everybody doesn't know what the Stepien rule was. There was an owner for the Cavs back in the day named Stepien, and he basically traded away all the Cavs picks for a decade, and they got worse. Because he missed on every single trade he made.
And then the fans got hopeless because they were like, well, we'll never bring it in.
And so they basically made him sell the team, and they had to give them back first-round picks, like give them fresh picks, because he had ruined the franchise trading because he just made bad trades and didn't care about the future and thought, well, we're going to win now. I'm going to buy the team, we'll win, and I'll sell it, and I'll make all this money. And he just was an idiot. So at least in basketball. And so that was why they made the rule that you could not leverage your franchise that way. At some point, somebody figured out the loophole, which is the trade swap, the pick swap.
Yeah, they didn't. Yeah,
which you still have a first round pick, but you get the better one. And sometimes those pick swaps, they don't happen because Spurs have a pick swap in 2026. And what if that team is, has the 30th pick and we have the 28th? Well, we're going to keep the 28th. We don't need to swap it. You get to pick if you swap it or not. So it doesn't always work out. And that's another one of those gambles. But the unprotected ones, those are, they can come back to bite you. but you could still get it protected. The Raptors pick that turned out to be the 8th pick that now turned into 2 unprotected picks from the Timberwolves, a pick and a pick swap from the Timberwolves and Rod Dillingham. That was a pick. That was a pick that was top 6 protected, I believe, and it was our top 7
and that's what I
protected.
love about how they hedge it too. It's like, all
And it
right,
was top 7
we'll go top
protected,
5 protected on this thing. I
and
love that, man. That's
and
great.
they tanked to get to be the point where the odds would say that they would be the 7th pick, and then they lost in the lottery and were the 8th pick, and the Spurs got the pick instead. So
I know.
there's crazy ways of this happening, but that was a protected pick, and the Spurs still end up getting it. But it was top 7 protected, became the 8th pick in the draft.
I know. That's what I love how that basically that gamble. You can like, all right, you know what? Let's protect it up until this point. We believe, right outside of that, we'll be okay. And it's it didn't always work on your favor, but
yeah,
it is definitely a loophole that the Spurs are taking advantage of. And like you said, I love you brought up that they have something a lot of these other organizations don't have is stability at the top and in the front office. So the Spurs can afford to make these these calculated risks down the line. These other guys are like, man, I'm not gonna, and they're right, I'm not gonna be here in 4 or 5 years. Like there's no point in me making these long-term plans for roster construction for this team because I won't be here to execute them. And they're right. I mean,
and
that's just the
especially if
reality
I
of
don't
it.
win.
Yeah, exactly.
And if I win, then I have a little bit more window because I've won a championship or something like that.
Yeah.
So now the owner will give me a little bit more leverage. And when I don't have those picks, we'll figure it out then. But I'll be working somewhere else because I'll just say, well, I'm going to go take this job now. Or I can be like Bob Myers in Golden State and go work for ESPN when I realize I've leveraged Golden State to the hilt. We're building a team where we can't keep this alive. Well, I'm not going to sit through the bad Golden State years. I'll go work on ESPN.
Or you got to have that owner because OKC's kind of got an owner who's willing to just, hey, I'm willing to be patient, and those are rare. Those are really, like you said, unless you are made man. The Spurs, they've already won titles. You get it,
but that's also more small market because small market you don't necessarily have big brash owners who come in and want to win right away because you're not going to buy a small market team if you're a big brash owner.
You got the big media putting pressure on you. That's a good point. They're right about that. All right, good stuff there. Good breakdown there, Patrick. All right, we come back. We'll go behind the burnt orange curtain. We'll talk about the L the Longhorns took on the recruiting trail. We'll talk about the win they also got recently on the recruiting trail. We'll also dive into something that I was looking at in terms of Texas transition to the SEC. I've been looking at all these numbers about Texas transition to the SEC. We'll talk about Texas in close games, all that and more when we come back right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis on Lifetime Longhorn. Rod Davis coming back on the horn. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. Time to get into some Texas football conversation. Um, if we have time, I'll jump into the stats that I was looking at about Texas in close games heading into the SEC. But first, I want to get into this this quote I saw from I believe it was from college football Sirius XM. That's exactly where it was from, and they were talking about recruiting and talk about Oregon because Oregon's made a lot of splashes in recruiting, and we know over the holiday weekend, July 4th, Decorian Moore, who a lot of Longhorn fans, including myself, I remember I said on these airways that, oh, they'll get him. He's the number one receiver in the country. And I thought, oh, Texas will get him because I saw the picture of him having 10 family members at the recruiting visit, brought grandma to the recruiting visit. I've never seen that before. I asked every recruiting insider, my man Jerry Hamilton, I asked him about it. I asked Bobby Burden, CJ Vogel, the guys over at On Texas Football. I was like, have you ever seen somebody bring that many people to a recruiting visit? They were like, no, that's never happened before. And then grandma, you don't bring grandma to a recruiting visit unless it's gonna be serious. So I assume, hey, Texas had it, and I believe a lot of the insiders also had them going to Texas, had them winning that recruiting battle. That was not the case. That was a win for Oregon. He announced it on July 4th. And then I saw this quote from Rick Neuheisel, who, by the way, recruited me. Rick Neuheisel was the coach at the University of Colorado when I was being recruited in '99, and I went there for a visit. I loved me some Rick Neuheisel. I thought he was great. Made the right decision going to Texas. But Rick Neuheisel on ESPN's College Football XM, he said he was at a recent coaches event. And he said, it's no secret Phil Knight is supplying Oregon unlimited NIL resources. Rick said Phil is 86 and he desperately wants to see a championship. So they're willing to pay whatever it takes. Now, I know there's some other reports that, maybe Texas offered more and, no pun intended, for Decorian Moore, the number one receiver in the country. Or I think Oregon, I don't know, from what I've heard, I believe Oregon offered more, but nobody knows, by the way. Nobody but Decorian Moore and his agent, whoever's representing him in Oregon. That's the only people who actually know. Anybody who's actually saying they really don't know. Unless they have that inside information, that's really tough. All right, most of that's just speculation.
Yeah.
But what we do know is Oregon on the recruiting trail last week. I mean, they got the number one receiver in the country, the number 4 cornerback, Dorian Brew, who's also a 5-star. They got the number 3 tight end in the country, number 5 running back, number 7 defensive lineman, another loss that Texas took, Josiah Sherman on the recruiting trail. So it's not just about Texas. I'm not freaking out about Texas recruiting. Patrick, a lot of people are freaking out because they're taking some L's on the recruiting trail. And I'll tell you why I think Longhorn fans are freaking out about it. But I think more of the story is if Phil Knight, and I don't know what Phil Knight is worth. I haven't even looked it up. I know he's worth enough. But if Phil Knight wants to go ultimate sugar daddy, and there are directives and collectives, he is a directive. It's just one, all right, one booster or donor deciding, hey, I am going to use my money to fund, this NIL project, whatever it may be. And then there's collectives, and Texas has both, and Texas has a lot of both. But make no mistake about it. If Phil Knight decides that he wants to go all in on NIL with the power of Nike and the money, he can. With Dan Lanning, who I think is a good coach.
Yeah,
you're damn right. They could make some noise, and he could fund them to competing for a national title. There's no doubt, especially in the 12-team college football playoff. They're going to be in. I mean, with their talent, looks like right now they're going to be in. And they can end up making some noise, man. Trust me. They still got the cool factor, and they got a sugar daddy, and they also might have now potentially unlimited NIL resources. Texas has a lot of it. I don't know if Texas has unlimited. They could, but I don't know if Sark wants to. We know Sark has said several times basically that he's basically doesn't want players who want to prioritize NIL over everything else.
Yeah. Well, I think Sark is also again looking long term and looking at a sustainable program of if I ask for all this money every single year and I don't win at all, it's not just making the playoffs, because if I need to get, I need everyone to double their contributions, then that doubles the expectations.
Oh yeah. No,
And so I can get where, if you're saying I have to go at these big, I have to get everybody up there, and then that's just to win these battles, and then still anything can happen. Anything can happen in college football. You say you have an injury late in the season. Well,
oh,
that's
no
it.
doubt.
And there goes, $100 million because, you had that injury late in the season and, it's hard to get over. So I think that you can plan into it. And I think you can plan correctly and say one player is not going to make or break us being able to get there. If we build the right team, we can go ahead and get ourselves in a position where we need to be. Oregon's in that great space right now because you have Dan Lanning, who's not only a really good coach, he's also a great salesman. He's been a great recruiter in his time at Oregon already.
That's part of it
you
too.
put that in there with the sales pitch of not only an NIL opportunity, but a deal with Nike where you can say this can be a start of a 20-year relationship, a 40-year relationship with Nike, where you could be making money on shoes with us until you're 50, 60 years old. That relationship is something that if you just even talk about money, where the money's the same, but there's talk of it, you're starting a deal with a shoe company that we think you're going to the NFL, and then you can get your own signature shoes in the NFL, and here's this plan laid out for you. That changes, more than just what money can do, because now you're talking about a plan, about marketing, about everything else to grow your image. So I get it's going to be a big plan. And, Oregon's going to make their run in these next couple of years. They're also having to deal with the fact that they're about to enter the Big Ten, and that's going to be a different kind of experience for them, where they were playing in the Pac-12, where their team was very much built for the Pac-12, and they're going to have to spend money to change up what they're doing a little bit to fit into what the Big Ten does. But yeah, I think, you can get upset with it if you're a Texas fan that you're losing out, or get a little bit worried that you're missing out on some of these guys. Until I see it demonstratively hurt Texas, I wouldn't be as worried about it. I think Sark still has a plan. I think they understand where they're going with it. So you like to win. You've had a lot of recruiting W's recently at the University of Texas. You want to keep that going. You never want to lose momentum. But I haven't seen it be bad enough yet that I would be worried about it.
I think what's ultimately happening, like I said, it's not really. It's more. I think the story is more about Oregon than it is about Texas. I
agree.
Texas fans are upset, but I think it's more about Phil Knight is deciding, hey, I'm all in on NIL. What's that look like, and what's how much is that? Because that could kind of shift the power balance in college football. It's just temporarily. If he's deciding, no, I'm going all in. I'm 86. I figure I got 3-4 good years left here. I'm going for these 3-4 years. I'm going to make Oregon a power because NIL gives me the ability to do so. And then you could see, like I said, you can see a reaction around the country from potential billionaires who decide, all right, I'll be the directive. I'll be the ultimate sugar daddy here. I'll fund the program. Y'all aren't doing enough. And then you can see this arms race around the country with big programs and big boosters. Who's the biggest booster of them all? Like and then that could, and you know what? I think the universities, they would benefit, but I think you would see the separation in of who has the most like big money boosters, like not just big billionaire boosters. Like who's got? There are a lot of billionaires, guys. There are only so many.
Yeah,
you can go measure it. There are so many, and there's only so many that are alumni of these major programs, and then that's where you get another. We talk about arms. You talking about another separator, where you can get billionaires just like, nah, I'm be the sugar daddy.
And that's their deal. Is there's not as many billionaires who are willing to throw a lot of money at a thing that will make them no money.
Yes,
and that is something that we see a lot of billionaires. The reason they're billionaires is because they don't spend their money willy-nilly.
They spend it wisely.
Yes.
Yeah. And their money makes money for them. And NIL, not necessarily that. But like I said, it's more of an arms race, but not necessarily one that gives you ROI.
But I think those are the ones with Phil Knight. He's 86. He knows what it is. That train runs out at some point.
Yes,
and if you're Oregon,
he's got kids. He's got family.
But
my thing, if you're billionaires, my thing is billionaire throwing 20-30 million at NIL is not gonna hurt him. So that's my point is they can do it. The
Yes.
billionaires, it doesn't hurt them. It really
Yes.
it doesn't hurt them at all. Like
Yeah.
a billionaire can literally throw 100 million and unless he's just super greedy and it's like, hey man, all of my money needs to make money. It's come on man, that's funny money for them. They really can do it just to just to obviously for their ego and for the program that they love, and that's the situation that he's in. But I will say this: I think Longhorn fans ultimately disappointment for you guys. I think the disappointment is everything has gone your way this offseason.
Yeah.
Right? You went to the college football playoff. Xavier Worthy set a 40-yard dash record at the combine. Yeah, 11 guys drafted. Arch Manning was great the spring game. Quinn Ewers is on the cover of the video game, and the belief was that, and I think it's a justified one, an irrational one, was that all that momentum will definitely carry over into recruiting, and it really hasn't. It's not saying it won't, but it hasn't necessarily translated into recruiting wins. And I think the natural thought process was that, man, with so much winning, Texas getting so much love. Oh man, recruiting, we're gonna kill it. Because think about what we've been doing without all of this momentum. Oh, this momentum is naturally it's going to be a tidal wave of recruiting wins, and it's just kind of the same as it was last year. It's like,
Yeah.
so I think that's what psychologically that's what it is. There's so much, there's been so much positivity. It was just expected to carry over, and it just hasn't, and that's okay.
No,
it will, but it just hasn't yet.
You always want to see growth, and when growth stops, even if it's at a great level, you still want to see it continue to grow. And
exactly.
and I get, but I think there's been enough shakeup in college and everything's happening that none of this stuff ever seems to last forever. So, and we don't know. We to college football too, and the whole grand scheme of it is going to be changing a lot over the next few years anyway, with revenue sharing and what we figure out what's going to happen with that. But yeah, at the end of the day, it doesn't. I guess I did not have the same expectations that all of a sudden it was going to be Texas was going to be the #1 recruiting class every year. I think you're still in that piece of you just need to be in that top 10 recruiting class, top 5 recruiting class every year. And then you have a really good coaching staff and culture, and you build all of that. And that's how you win titles, because the #1 recruiting class every year doesn't necessarily lead you to titles.
No, I mean, Michigan, I think, had a blue chip ratio of 54% or something like that when they won the national title. So no, you're right. It's about development of that talent and the culture. All right, good stuff there. We come back, we'll get into the topic for the big fat poll of the day on the other side, and learn more about our music theme day of the week right here on the Rodcast, featuring Patrick Davis on Lifetime Longhorn. Rod Davis coming back on the horn.
Back here on the Rodcast on a Monday, and that means it's a Smooth Soul Monday, playing some smooth soul to get your week started right, ease you back into the work week, get you ready. I know if you were like us, you got a nice long weekend, which makes it a little bit harder to come back on a Monday, but we're all headed back to work on a Monday after a holiday weekend, so we hope you had a great time, but easing you back in with a Smooth Soul Monday. Let's get to the big fat poll of the day today. I'll get you back in there. We'll post it up on X here in just a minute, but you can also text in 512-447-3776.
Patrick's big fat poll of the day on the Horn.
Big fat poll of the day. We said in the Horn headlines, DeMar DeRozan is in Sacramento. He is going to the Kings. And that basically is your last big name free agent that is going to be out there. There's still several free agents who will make a difference next season, but your big name free agents, there wasn't a lot in this class. He is going to be one of the last ones that you're going to find. So we will say, this will be added lead to the big fat poll today. Which big free agent signing will make it further in the playoffs next season? So which one of these big signings, Chris Paul to the Spurs, Klay Thompson to the Mavs, Paul George to the Sixers, DeMar DeRozan to the Kings, which one of them actually helps their team make it further in the playoffs next year? We know Chris Paul, even if they make the play-in, they're probably not making it further, even though he could be a big addition and help out. We're not talking about which takes a bigger leap. We're saying which one gets you further in the playoffs. So the Mavs who make it to the finals last year, do they make another run with Klay and puts them there? Is Paul George and the Sixers, does that put them in the elite? Can they compete with Boston and get further in? Are they going to be able to be a top seed and not have to play Boston until the Eastern Conference Finals? Either one of those questions. And in the Kings, is that high-powered offense is what they're trying to build over there with De'Aaron Fox, Domantas Sabonis, Keegan Murray is a better offensive player last season. You add in now DeMar DeRozan, who was averaging 24 points plus a game last season. All of those pieces. Which one of those free agent signings are going to make it further in the playoffs next season?
That is a good question. Right now I have to think about that. Because the Mavs, I mean, in the West, as good as the West is, they still made a run because Luka and Kyrie were that good.
And the seeding worked out for him. I know you beat a Clippers team that, you got into it, but there was some injuries. Kawhi wasn't healthy the full time, but you match up well enough with them. You figure it out. You get through that. You play an OKC team that I don't know if you beat them again this season. That team is going to be better next year. They added in Alex Caruso. They added in Hardenstein. They're a better team next season. If you play Denver, you probably don't win that series because you don't have a big man that could have sat down and played with Jokic in that way. But you end up with a Minnesota team that is able to be built to be a Denver killer.
Yeah,
that kills Denver, but then wasn't built to beat the Mavs. So the Mavs go on that run, but the seeding helped them out the way they were able to go through. They played a heck of a season. Can they repeat that again? That is a big question. Paul George going to Philly. No one still believes that playoff Paul George is going to be able to take them over the edge.
And Embiid hadn't stayed really that
He has not stayed healthy
in the season. So that worries me too about them. And then Boston, man, they're just so good.
Boston's really good.
Oh, that is it really is a good question because the Mavs are really a team that I just wonder, man, how does that Klay Thompson experiment work? And if it works out really well,
and can they?
I don't know if the Sixers have enough
because, and you worry about the Mavs, or you wonder with the Mavs, I should say, is this a team that is going to be consistently there because Luka Doncic is one of the top 3 players in the NBA? Are they going to be consistently in that conversation at the top of the West, or did it just kind of work out and they got hot at the right time?
Right.
And they slide back down, and then they'll stay in the playoff teams. They're still a good team. But if they're back in the 5-6 seed again next year, are they going to be able to keep getting over that hump? Does Lively progress and become a better player next season, a bigger piece of it? Or did you lose a little bit because teams play him a little bit better? What do you find to work for you as the seasons go on once teams start to figure out what you do?
Yeah, and you're right about the Kings too. I mean, that's a team that a couple of years ago was considered to be that young team ascending and going to make that jump, and then it it withered away for some reason.
They're never able to. It's a smaller market
Right.
team again, where you say this is a team that hasn't really been able to bring in free agents, hasn't been able to get that guy to get over the hump, and so DeMar DeRozan is not necessarily the guy you would think is the guy to get you over the hump, but you need to put something in there.
Do something, yeah.
You need to add another big piece. You drafted Keegan Murray. You hope he gets better next year as well, and maybe everything starts to come together. But yeah, it's difficult. And then the Spurs with Chris Paul is an interesting piece, and you don't know what Wemby's going to be going into next season. You don't know what this team, with a little bit more veteran mentorship, are they really that 22-win team that needs a ton of work to be able to get to where they need to be? Or is this a team that underperformed last season because of minutes restrictions, because of some poor decisions early on? Were they a team that really should have been a 30-win team last season? Still not a playoff team, but a 30-win team. And then the jump from 30-win team to 45-win team is a little bit easier to think of than a 22-win team to a 45-win team.
Yeah. That's good stuff. All right, we'll get into more about the topic for the Big Fat Poll of the day. We'll come back. We'll dive into some Cowboys drama. There's always some Cowboys drama. And, of course, over the holiday weekend, there was some Cowboys drama. We also have Raj Rant of the Day. Several different ways I could go for Raj Rant of the Day. It'll be NFL-related, football-related. I promise you that. We'll do that on the other side right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. I'm Lifetime Longhorn. Rod Rivers coming back on the horn. Hey, what's up, folks? Lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers here. Even with the traffic, Austin is still one of the best cities in the country. That's why, we all call it home. That's also why people keep moving to Austin, making it one of the fastest growing cities in the country, of course. And it continues to grow and thrive. And yes, that means a lot more traffic, but that also means that you have businesses like Ironworkers Local Union 482 that are also thriving here in Austin. And right now, they're growing. They're actually hiring over 3,000 people for a huge project right here in Central Texas. They're offering competitive wages, competitive benefits, a pension plan. They even offer training for unskilled labor through their apprenticeship program. So if you're looking for an exciting employment opportunity or a refreshing career change, or you're looking for a new challenge, or you want to feel valued by your employer, you can become a valued member of this prestigious organization, Ironworkers Local Union 482. And right now is the perfect time to do it. Just head on over to Ironworkers Union 482.org. That's Ironworkers482.org. And you can apply there for the numerous different positions that they have. And as I said before, competitive wages, competitive benefits, and a pension plan. And if you don't have any experience working in Ironworkers Union, you can also go there and apply for their apprenticeship program as well. So go to ironworkers482.org, and there you can apply at ironworkers482.org. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. It is a smooth soul Monday. That's where Patrick plays jams intended to make your transition from the very relaxing, hopefully stress-free weekend, a holiday weekend that you had. I hope everybody had a great 4th of July holiday weekend and a very lengthy holiday weekend back into the work week, and sometimes the stress of the work week, the traffic and the meetings can just slap you in the face, and it can be really tough and abrupt, and we don't want that to happen. So in order to make that a smooth transition, my man Patrick has created Smooth Soul Mondays for y'all out there. So who is singing this? What jam is this?
This is Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes.
Wow, good stuff there. Yeah, I don't think. It's. I don't think I've ever heard this song before. What's the name of it?
You know how to make me feel so good.
Okay, that makes sense from terms of the first lyrics that I heard.
Yes.
I'll try to let it breathe and open up, and I was like, "Oh, okay, let me just come on in." It's like, touch me. I was like, "Okay, you know what?
Right. No, it's just gentle, just gentle back rubs. I'm sure. I'm just
No, yeah, exactly, right? Yeah, there you go. All right, there you go. My man Patrick cooking you up on a smooth so Monday. All right, so we'll get into some NFL discussion here. I got a couple of NFL topics that I'll dive into in Rod's Rant of the Day. I'm thinking about looking at this, or at least talking to you guys about a new study that I saw about NFL players and states with the most NFL players per million. Right, I think this study was done per million. Usually, it's done per capita. They did it per million here. It's really interesting some of the data that was thrown out there. So we'll get into that, and I'll share that with you guys coming up in Rod's Rant of the Day. We'll also in Rod's Rant we'll dive into another story that I thought was pretty interesting. A study done about scoring first in football, well, in the NFL, and I think it applies to college too. I've even seen some numbers in college, but I'll share those numbers with you. It's pretty, I think it's pretty interesting, and some of it kind of mind blowing. Some of the numbers about simply how winning, how scoring first correlates to winning football games. And there's got to be some psychology in it. So we'll talk about that and dive into it in Rod's Rant. But first, we'll talk Cowboys. Before we do any of that, let's get updated. Let's get educated and informed on all the top stories of the day with my man Patrick Davis and the Horn Headlines.
All right, your Horn Headlines brought to you by Top Gun Rentals and Lawn Equipment. In the NBA, the Sacramento Kings acquired free agent DeMar DeRozan in a 3-year, $74 million sign and trade deal. The Kings are trading Harrison Barnes in an unprotected 2031 pick swap to San Antonio and Chris Duarte and 2 second-round picks to the Bulls to complete the deal. DeRozan, a 6-time All-Star who will turn 35 next month, is coming off an impressive 3-year scoring run with the Bulls, where he averaged over 24 points last season. In the MLB, the Astros dropped their series to the Twins 2-1 after a Christian Vazquez walk-off home run on Sunday. The Astros are now 2 games back of Seattle for the lead in the AL West, with 2 more series to go before the All-Star break. Raniel Blanco will get the start for Houston when they return to action against the Marlins on Tuesday. And the Rangers swept the Tampa Bay Rays over the weekend, including a dominant 13-2 win on Sunday. Corey Seager and Travis Janikowski both added 4 RBIs each, while Nathan Eovaldi pitched another solid start, going 7 innings, only allowing 2 runs. The Rangers begin a series with the Angels tonight, hoping to continue their winning momentum with John Gray taking the mound. And that is your Horn Headlines.
All right, Patrick, thank you for the Horn Headlines. Appreciate those. All right, so over the weekend, Dak was seen in a walking boot. He was on vacation. He was seen in a walking boot. Oh, man, and Twitter blew up. I mean, it was just Cowboys fans and NFL fans inside blew up. Somebody took that picture, and I'm sure Dak did not want that getting out.
Yeah.
But it did. And so he had to, I think on vacation, his people had to put out a statement about, hey, man, what's going on, man? You were seeing the walking boot. What's the deal? And it turns out, and I got this from Todd Archer, said Dallas Cowboys quarterback, he recently suffered a minor right foot sprain. So no need to panic. It was a minor right foot sprain that temporarily required a walking boot. Said Prescott was seen in a walking boot while on vacation in Cabo San Lucas. In a picture posted to X on Wednesday, it was unclear when the picture was taken, and he is no longer wearing the boot, according to sources. It was just mostly, for him, just cautionary, preventative. The injury is not expected to impact Prescott when the Cowboys hold their first training camp practice on July 25th. And it's not known how Prescott suffered the injury. The Cowboys last held an organized workout on June 5th. So it's not a big deal. Nothing to freak out about, Cowboys fans. But yes, I think he was. I guess he just underestimated how famous he was. I mean, you are the starting quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys. You're not going to be able to hide the fact that you're in a walking boot if you're out on vacation, even if it is in Cabo San Lucas. I mean, that's just the reality of it. The Cowboys are the number one TV star on the number one TV show in America, and you are the starting quarterback. By the way, coming off your best season. Sorry, that's just the way it works out. So
it's funny because it seemed like he was trying to do the right thing, which is, I didn't really hurt myself, so I'll just put the bubble wrap on it because I really want to make sure I'm healthy. Like, yes. I really don't need this. This is really over the top, but let's be safe, better safe than sorry. I don't want to ruin this season. It's a big year for me. So don't let a little thing become a big thing. And then of course someone takes a picture of it and he's like, I don't even need this. But it's that old school view where you would have, tried to tape it up and wear socks or something so that no one knew it was hurt underneath and totally you get away with it. But then you risk, and maybe he was going to have a few drinks and he's like, look, a few drinks on a boat. It's a good way to hurt an ankle.
No, you're right. That's a great point. But he was basically trying to be responsible.
Yeah.
And he was like, you know what? I don't want, hey, what if I slip? What if I getting on the boat, do something weird? You know what? Nope. I'm just going, if I have the boot on, then I will be cautious just because I have it on. It won't allow me to do some stuff. And you're right. It blew up in his face. I actually love that about Dak, though. It shows that he is being responsible. And he should, by the way, it's his money year.
Yeah.
I mean, he's either going to get paid this offseason, and once you get paid, you want to have a great year. You don't want to get paid the money and then have a terrible year or get hurt. That's not, players got too much pride for that. And if you do have to play on the last year of your contract, dude, this is the year you want to be at your best. And you definitely don't want an injury to, devalue your season and your worth as a player. So this is a big year for Dak. Legacy wise, this is a big year for Dak.
Yeah. And I mean, and that's the, he's probably understands sports science. One of the things he was talking about is like preventative maintenance, and it's stuff of, I know the more you injure your ankle, the easier it is to injure your ankle. The tendons become looser and things like that. So I'm just being super precautious about it. And again, you're talking about he hasn't got paid. Even if, if he goes in this training camp and they're, about to work on a deal and they're getting close to it and they say, well, yeah, but he's got to sit out 2 weeks of training camp because of an injury. You don't think the Joneses are going to walk back and go, well, then we're taking off some money off this deal, right? If this guy can't even stay healthy over the offseason when he's not playing, you're going to take money off the deal from him now, right? And so he knows that as well. So, I wouldn't be surprised if that was Jerry Jones's people taking pictures surrounding him.
Hey, I'm sure there's somebody on the grassy knoll right now, and there's a conspiracy theory saying, I'm just saying, but I'm sure somebody out there is like, you know what? If you could prove that Dak was dealing with a serious injury, that would indeed devalue him. It is not a serious injury.
Let's put it this way. If that would have been me on vacation and I saw Dak Prescott in walking boots, I would have taken the picture and I probably would have sent it to some of my friends, and then some of my friends work in sports media. So it may have leaked out that way. Because I would have taken a picture. Would have been like, hey, this is something that's noticeable.
Yeah, I don't know where it originated from either. Like, I really don't. I just saw it and then it made the round. So you're right. I don't know where it did. I don't know if somebody just, as soon as they took it, they posted it, or if it did come through an actual source of the media, or if it just came via social media. I'm not sure, but it blew up quick, fast, in a hurry. And no big deal. But like you said, Dak was trying to do the right thing, and it blew up in his face. Also, did you see this? And man, the Cowboys are, and this is, it's just smart by the Cowboys, by the way. You notice that, and maybe it's because we cover the Cowboys, but it can't be like this with any other team. There's always so much beef and drama within the Cowboys organization, or even with former players, with players within the locker room. We were just talking about Malik Hooker, Micah Parsons beef, right? That was going on. Now apparently there's a Cole Beasley, CeeDee Lamb beef that's going on. I remember even their family members get on. Dak's brother is always in on it. There's always Dez Bryant's always got something to say about somebody and something. And it's just, hell, I remember CeeDee Lamb's mom You remember this? Like back in, I want to say it was like CeeDee Lamb's mom actually had something to say on social media, and that became part of the social media conversation on Cowboys Twitter. I mean, there's always beef and pettiness among the Cowboys family and extended family,
Yes.
and their family drama. It always gets out. And it's just I think they're the only ones like that because they just have first of all, they got a lot of guys in the media that are former Cowboys, number one. But it's just encouraged that remember Jesse Holly and Micah Parsons had that thing. It's just encouraged, I think, because they're the number one TV show in America, and they're the number one, basically they're the number one TV star, I should say, on the number one TV show. But they act like a reality show. They're like a reality TV show in themselves. The Cowboys are. And there's always some random beef, and then there's always kind of this pettiness that's thrown out there. And by the way, beef and pettiness it does sell. I mean, Drake and Kendrick Lamar just had a beef that kind of reignited hip hop and pettiness. Go ask how being petty and beef what it does for women's basketball and how it's kind of rejuvenated interest in basketball. It works now. It's a proven formula, and the Cowboys use it. And there's kind of this Kardashian element to the way the Cowboys operate. Anyway, the latest is, okay, in case you haven't heard, CeeDee Lamb and Cole Beasley got into it. So Cole Beasley, CeeDee Lamb puts out these videos, workout videos, and they're actually pretty impressive. He's a freak, man. He's got the fastest feet like of any human being. He looks, I mean, he has some of the fastest footwork I've ever seen for a wide receiver. It is even go look at his feet compared to other wide receivers when he's running, decelerating, and accelerating, getting in and out of routes. Man, it is freaky. Trust me, from as a former defensive back, he's one of the guys I would hate to have to cover. I mean, and I don't really know what my success rate would be against him. So anyway, he put out a workout video, all right? And after the workout video came out, Cole Beasley quote tweeted the workout video, captioned it, "Man, just do some heavy squats and power cleans, ... And I don't know if he was joking or what, but after he said that, the people kind of came after him, like the Cowboys Twitter came after him and was like, "Are you trying to tell CeeDee Lamb how to work out? Like you know better than what CeeDee Lamb is doing?" And he said this, give me 180 targets off the couch and I eclipse 1,000. Stop looking at stats and check the tape. As far as getting open goes, ... I'm confident I did that with the best of them. And then CeeDee Lamb himself got in on it. He's like, hold up, people talk, because when your name is trending on Twitter, you're going to check out why it's trending. So I'm not getting on those guys. But he probably didn't have to, put in his 2 cents, but he did. He did. He fell for it. Just like Micah falls for it. Remember Micah and Malika, he responded. They need to delete the tweet. CeeDee Lamb said, "I don't need 180 targets to touch a band. Pull up tape. I'd match you route for route on getting open. Just chill." At Bees11. So we added them. Wanted to make sure, hey, just so you know I'm talking to you. And yeah, it's just, I'm not criticizing either one. This is an observation. No other team has these types of little petty beefs between former players and players, between players and players in the Cowboys organization. They just do. It's just something. I think it's part of the culture that they are a reality TV show. They are. They promote their players. They want their players to have their own brands. They are, like I said, the number one TV star on the number one TV show. And it's just even their family members get on it. Dak Prescott's brother gets in on it, and CeeDee Lamb's like mom gets in on it. Like I'm talking about, like that's no other team had. That's unique to the Cowboys.
No, and
I don't know if it's
we saw
thing, but it sells.
No, we saw it with Dalton Schultz was talking about the difference of the weight rooms and just the training rooms, and saying, well, in Dallas there was a giant window where tourists would walk by and tap on the glass, and so it's just that different culture of everything is a show, everything is kind of about, we're not telling our players things stay in the locker room, we figure this out, you don't go report. It's not a message of passed down from veterans to rookies to say, I saw you online, man, get off that, get off Twitter, get off Facebook, you can't be posting that stuff, that's no good, that's not focusing on the goal, we need to focus on the goal. That's just not what they're doing. And you can't say it works because they haven't won at the level they need to win, but you also can't say that's the reason. It's neither or. But yeah, it is interesting to see that it constantly is the star players responding to guys that you don't need to respond to. Like Cole Beasley's fine, but he's gonna say you're CeeDee Lamb. You're gonna be fine.
Exactly. You're CeeDee Lamb. You're good.
You're gonna be fine.
No, remember Micah and DeMarcus Lawrence had this beef for a while?
Yeah.
Because DeMarcus Lawrence said something about Micah and an observation about them in the playoff game. Their drama. I'm sure there's drama going on with the team.
Oh, yeah.
But it just plays out publicly with the Cowboys. And they openly do it too. Like they invite it as well.
And there is something to be said of it's the Cowboys, so everything is magnified.
That is also true.
Just
totally agree.
I mean, because you can look, we're both Texas fans. There was a lot of drama that went on for several years with the Texans, and it went a lot of it under the radar because they were not winning, and it wasn't that.
Yeah.
And so the Deshaun Watson stuff blew up. But when when you have one of your best wide receivers in the history of your franchise, one of your only Hall of Famer comes out and says, I denounce the franchise because of the owner and because of this and all the stuff they're doing. And that's not a huge story. That would be gigantic if it's a Cowboys story.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think there is something that everything gets so magnified that stuff probably does happen on some level of this on other teams. But if you say, if it's a player on the Cardinals right now, it's not necessarily the biggest story. It's probably in the news cycle. It maybe never even hits the major news cycle. It's in the Arizona news cycle for a little bit, and then it passes through. And the Cowboys is always going to be national news. The fact that Dak Prescott, a picture of him in a walking boot, was front center of all sports media for a day should tell you how important it is that everything's going to be magnified. But the Cowboys definitely don't see that and then walk in their locker room and go, everything is magnified. Everyone shut up. Nobody say anything. Because if anything gets out, and that's the difference that you see is they don't seem to want to stop it. So it is magnified. It is something that's probably not as unique to them, but the fact that they don't ever try to stop it is unique to them.
I think they embrace it.
Yeah.
That's why I think it's different, because I think they actually embrace it. I think it's something that the Cowboys embrace, and it's not something, and like I said, I'm not saying it's bad or good, but like I said, I remember when CeeDee Lamb's mom is saying Dak isn't it, and I was like, I know I'm sure other teams deal with it.
We saw. Well. Remember, OBJ's dad posted the whole,
no doubt,
video, and so
about
the routes and when he was.
But I said the Cowboys, it happens all the time. It happened.
It's common.
You can't. We cover the Cowboys a lot, and it happens a lot with the Cowboys.
Yes.
Yeah, those stories we cover the NFL too, and we talked about that when it happened. But those seem to be, like I said, rare and far and few between. You know what I mean? Few and far between. And with the Cowboys, it's every week. That's going to be one of these random stories. All right. But we'll get back to the Cowboys. Oh, as a matter of fact, I think, and I was talking about this with a friend of mine, because the Cowboys running attack, I heard Greg Cosell talking about it. It's going to be bad, because I don't think the Cowboys have done anything to really boost their running game. They don't have any running backs, in my opinion, who are considered difference makers. That includes bringing Zeke in. So they're gonna rely heavily on the passing game. And CeeDee Lamb is about to get paid. And I think Dak's probably gonna get paid too. And those guys are gonna get paid top of the market money for their positions. But another guy, I think his stock is just gonna be up, because they're gonna throw the football a lot, is Jake Ferguson. And I don't think people realized last year that Jake Ferguson career highs in receptions 71, 761 receiving yards. That's and 5 touchdowns. And if you go look at it, he had the playoff loss, demoralizing playoff loss. He actually finished with 10 receptions on 12 targets, 93 yards. I mean, he had a breakout kind of performance later on in that playoff. So I think he's a guy that, if you look at it, probably should, if you're a fantasy person, man, you probably should be looking at Jake Ferguson. He might become Dak's second favorite target in this offense, period. He's less competition in year 2 for target share. He's already just one of 7 tight ends with 100 targets. They got a weak running game. Dallas has the sixth highest pass rate, and they were first in pace. And he had the best single game fantasy football performance among all tight ends last year. It just came during the playoffs, but he had 37 points per reception points in that playoff game that I talked about. So I don't know if we talk enough about Jake Ferguson. I don't think we've talked about him at all, really, because we've been talking about CeeDee Lamb and some of the other weapons on offense. But that actually, and they've invested in tight end too. We drafted the tight end out of Michigan last year, and he hasn't really worked out for him. But Jake Ferguson, I'm telling you, he's gonna have a breakout year this year. Remember, Travis Kelce said he loved him some Jake Ferguson, said he was gonna be a really good player. Just saying, watch out for him.
Yeah, no, and I don't think he's going to be stuck in run blocking a lot either. So
no,
he can get out there and get some routes.
Yeah, exactly. I think the Cowboys are going to find out early on that their running game is one of the worst in the NFL, and they're just going to put the.
Yeah, I'm still. It's one of those other pieces. It feels like the Cowboys have business they still need to do, whether it's a trade or whether it's waiting for somebody else to be available that gets cut as a running back, signing their free agents. I got asked that number of times of people I was talking to over the break. People asking, well, are the Cowboys? They're not really just going to go into next season, and it's like it doesn't feel like they're done, does it? It doesn't feel, because if it does, it feels like they're rebuilding. If they don't re-sign any of these players before the season, if they don't get a running back, if they don't invest anything else into this team right now, it feels like this is a rebuild year. It just feels like it. And I know they're still going to be good, which means you're not tanking, but it also feels like you're about to go into a rebuild. It feels like there's, and it doesn't feel like that's what they want to do. We talked about with Phil Knight earlier. It doesn't feel like an 81-year-old Jerry Jones is going to want to go into, let's hope that we find the next quarterback and we'll save our resources and then we'll build after we get rid of a bunch of these high dollar players. That doesn't feel like it's going to happen either. I would bet more if you were to tell me that they do make some deals in training camp and try and do something. I don't know what they're going to do at running back. I think they're going to bring in one more. I don't think they're going to trade unless it becomes horrifically bad. And I don't think it'll be that bad. I think Rico Dottle will average over 4 yards a carry, which is what it will be enough. They'll average like 4.1 probably per carry, something of that effect. If he doesn't, I don't think Zeke will. So that'll start to be a problem. But even at that, I don't think you're gonna have those explosive plays out of the run game, and so it'll be a problem. But I don't know if it'll be bad enough that in the first few weeks of the season they make a big trade to go try and get a running back.
I think it'll just be bad.
I feel like it feels like they're still gonna do something. I
hope so.
It can't be. It just doesn't feel like that's what's going to end up being.
And I do think they'll sign. They got to sign. They'll sign. I think they'll sign CD and Dak. I do. I just cannot see them having a doomsday scenario where they go into the season with both of those guys playing out the last year on their contracts. It's a disaster waiting to happen. I think the Cowboys they're more responsible than that. Because then, I mean, you got to trade them though, because then you just let them. That would be the worst case scenario, to let them just play out the deal and become free agents. At least sign them and try to trade them, or trade them, then they could sign somewhere else and get something. Yeah. You got to do something. You got to get something in exchange for those guys.
But that's why I think they'll do something. I'll be critical of Jerry Jones and Stephen Jones and all of that. I don't think they're dumb and they're bad at their jobs and that bad to just say, screw it, let's let 2 to 3 great players walk with recouping no cost for any of that.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And we'll just start over and hope we'll draft some guys.
That's malpractice, man.
Because we're worried about the cap and we don't want to pay any more on it. It just doesn't seem like they're going to do that.
At least CD. You trade, because you got examples of CD being traded.
Yeah.
I think you would trade Dak too. I think if you really, that's how you feel you want to move on from. Don't be irresponsible to the extent where you allow both those guys to leave via free agency and get no ROI, no return on that investment. That would be one of the worst decisions in the history of sports. I don't think the Cowboys are that. They're not that stupid. There's no way.
I don't think so.
It's not gonna happen.
And I think we'll see something when training camp starts up, when they're out there. I think something will happen. I think
They know
something
that.
will happen.
That's why I think they're like chilling right now. Because
Yeah.
they know nothing's going to disrupt the market unless it still could if I don't know. Patrick Mahomes could redo a deal. We talked about what quarterbacks Jordan Love
Jordan
could
Love,
be. That could do something crazy with Jordan. I don't think Tua's going to get that kind of deal.
I don't
Maybe
think either, but yeah.
I don't think he is.
But
Jordan
again,
Love is the one that could
but Tua
disrupt.
is the
And
one.
CJ, well, CJ Stroud's got a while, but I'm gonna say I don't know how long they're going to wait on this thing. Josh Allen, I guess he just signed a deal. There are not many other quarterbacks that could disrupt the market, so maybe they're comfortable knowing what they got to pay.
Yeah, I think they're. Yeah, I think it'll happen at camp, but it's just they've done a lot of deals at camp. It just is weird. It's just covering it. It doesn't. This is not how most teams do business.
No, but I'll admit the price tag, right? The price is the price at this point. I mean, right? CD's gonna be what, 33 million, not Justin Jefferson, but right under him, and Dak's gonna be 60 million. I mean, that's just thank you, Trevor Lawrence. I mean, Trevor Lawrence, to me, essentially cemented Dak's position in leverage. It's done deal. How about this little factoid about the Cowboys? I know we're not in what the facts, but I'm going to share this anyway. Over the last 20 years, the Cowboys have the highest average season win total of any team that hasn't won a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Unfortunately, yeah, exactly. We'll come back and we'll get into Rod's rant of the day. NFL related. It matters if you score first. We'll talk about that and why that is the case. And we'll also dive into the states who produce the most NFL players per million. I like that, per million. All right. New study that I found. We'll dive into that. And you'll be a little surprised where these pockets of talent are in around the country. Because there are certain areas where I think there are 4 of them now where there are certain pockets around the country where these areas are producing I think they're overrepresented in disproportionate in terms of the comparison to the population of the amount of NFL players they're producing compared to the rest of the states. 21 states that I found, as a matter of fact, in basically 4 areas of the country. And we'll talk about that on the other side, right here on the Rodcast, featuring Patrick Davis on Lifetime Longhorn. Rod Babers coming back on the horn. to the Rodcast. Time to get into Rod's rant of the day. I just talk about the importance of scoring first in football. I actually, don't have many theories on it. I got a couple of theories on it, but when I saw these numbers, I just felt compelled to share them. But I do think there's got to be some there's some merit to it. That there's something going on with scoring first in football and what it does to your opponent psychologically, or maybe what it does to you as a team psychologically. So teams win 64% of the games when they score first. Um, and this is over the last 10 years. Yeah, so it's over the last 10 years. In the last 2 years, if you look at the number of games of a team that scored first, Baltimore and Philadelphia lead because they're at 23. I think Cleveland, San Francisco, and Detroit are at 22. I saw a stat also in college football that number was upwards of 70. This was from 2021. And that number is upwards of 70% in college about scoring first. And this was, like I said, this is over 10 years. This comes from Warren Sharp, who does a great job. A couple of little nuggets of information here from the statistical post that he put up via Twitter. So the Bears scored first in 10 games last year. That was the number 3 highest total, but went 6-4 in those games. 1-6 when allowing an opponent to score first. Flip side, they were on the bad side of that. Over the last 2 years, Chicago has scored first in 18 of 34 games, but just 8-10 in those games. So, Bears got some issues. The Chargers scored first, it says here, in 11 of 17 games, but went just 5-6 in those games, and went 0-6 when allowing opponents to score first. So they're kind of outliers in this whole thing. Cowboys were 10-0 last year when scoring first, and 2-5 when allowing their opponents to score first. Chiefs, and this is kind of freaky. Chiefs are 18-1. I mean, the Chiefs are at a different level altogether. Interesting that the Cowboys though are 10-0 when they're scoring first. So the Cowboys, they are kind of the epitome of this trend. And this as a factor in football, just being able to score first and what it does to infuse confidence in your team and what it does to opponents, like psychologically, how they have a tough time kind of recovering from dealing with playing from a deficit for that long. So the Chiefs are 18-1 when scoring first the last 2 years, 7-8 when allowing the first points of the game. So, I mean, the Cowboys and Chiefs are kind of the best examples of it. Cowboys, when they allow opponents to score first, 2-5 in those games, even though we pointed out Cowboys have won 12 games the last couple of years. Chiefs, and I believe the Cowboys are right behind the Chiefs in terms of regular season wins in the last like 2 or 3 years. Chiefs are 18-1 when scoring first the last 2 years, 7-8 when allowing their first points of the game. So I try to think about what it is psychologically. I looked at Texas too, just looking at Texas football last season. They allowed their opponent to score first in 5 games. They went 3-2 in those games. They allowed Washington to score first. They allowed Oklahoma to score first. It's 2 losses. They allowed Rice and Wyoming to score first, strangely enough. But think about how close that Wyoming game was. It was a tie game to the fourth quarter. The Rice game was 13-3 before a 49-yard field goal ended that first half by Bert Auburn. It ended up being 16-3. And then the Sark run came in. Those runs I talk about came in the third quarter. You blew them out. I think you end up beating them 37-10. That game ended up being a little tighter than it needed to be. Scoring first against Sark's teams, at least I think gives you a good chance to stay in it longer because you keep them from starting their run earlier. There's going to be a Sark run and you keep it from starting earlier and you kind of can halt or force him to postpone his run because Sark's runs, a lot of them come in his opening script too. His opening script is inundated with cheat codes, hard oftentimes for opponents to get their bearings. to adjust. It takes them a while to adjust, figuring out exactly how Sark wants to attack them, and then they adjust, and then Sark has the counter. But the adjustment sometimes can take a while, and that usually is part of the run. And so scoring against Texas first will give you an advantage. So be watching that next season. So I think it's more about confidence. I just think it's as simple as that. I think when I used to compare it to going out with money in your pocket. If you've ever been broke before, then you understand the difference. Difference how you feel on payday, going to the club when you're broke as opposed to going to the club on payday. That's how I feel as a defender playing with a lead. You're playing with a lead in football. You feel like you feel like you're going to the club with money in your pocket. You're more confident. The way you speak to the ladies a little bit differently. All right, you got a different walk to you. All right, there's a different swagger that you have. I mean, there's there. I would say that you probably are more the life of the party if you got some money in your pocket. If you don't, you'll be a little insecure. Probably not as confident as you usually otherwise would be. I don't know if you want to be life of the party because you probably can't afford to be the life of the party. And I just think it's a confidence factor in playing with a lead for the overall team and everyone. And because think about how much before the game, how much hype, how much positivity you have, and how deflating could be. Like, oh man, all right, I scored first. And not everybody has the personality that all right, you know what, being resilient. Okay, now we face adversity, let's go fight. There are some folks that they see that the initial score, and they may not have that kind of bounce back mentality, and they'd rather play with the lead. Some people are just better, and some teams are better, programs are better just playing with a lead. So I do think that's just psychologically part of it. So close to 65% of the time, score first, you win the game in football. Period. Not everybody has that. I don't, like I said, there are some outliers we pointed out, but most of the time that is the case. All right. Speaking of football, NFL, I saw this study that was done about and it's from Football Scoop, about the most NFL players. All right, per every million people. All right, per state. So how many states produce the most NFL players, and they did it per million people in those states. And I was a little surprised actually at some of the studies, and they looked at the basically the average and the mean across all the different states, and which states were overrepresented, had disproportionately more than the average across the states, and also they looked at the states that were underrepresented with that average based on the per NFL players per every million people in that state. And there were 21 states that were, quote, overrepresented, essentially having a disproportionately higher number of NFL players produced per million people in that state. The highest was Louisiana. Mississippi was the second highest. Alabama and Georgia. I didn't notice the trend here. Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia. And here's the outlier. This is the one that kind of stood out and started, me to diving down, getting, deep into the rabbit hole here. Iowa. Yeah. Iowa's right there. If you look at per million, based on this study, in terms of overrepresentation. So 12 and a half per million. Louisiana's at 15. Says here Mississippi's at 14 and a half. Alabama at 12.7. Georgia at 12.6. And then there is a significant drop off after that. But that's your top five. And then, like I said, that's your top four. And then Iowa's a part of that top five here, according to this. So there's basically in the heartland of America, maybe that's kind of the area that I'm talking about here. There is, like I said, they're part of the 21 states that are considered that overrepresented, that have more players produced in that state per million people than the average. Utah, Wyoming, and Nebraska actually are part of those 21 states. So in Iowa, Utah, Wyoming, Nebraska, right there in that area. Like I said, I believe that's some people call that the heartland. Not sure exactly what area you would have called that, but they are producing NFL players at a weirdly disproportional rate. And those states all border one another. Iowa, Nebraska, Wyoming, Utah. And it's weird, and that happens in America, right? And that think about the SEC. Like the SEC, the reason the SEC is the most dominant football conference is because the states that produce the most NFL players are all right there connected to one another. If you're recruiting, it's all right. You just got to stay in that one area. Just send all your best recruit. And you got you got 8 states to choose from now in that area because Texas is now a part of that. Texas is now a part of the SEC country. They just linked out Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, Florida, Tennessee, South Carolina. Man, that's it. Yeah, so you really got 8. I would throw North Carolina in there, but that's ACC country. But it's still bordering all those states. They're all connected. They're all bordering. All those, those 9 states right there. And if you're recruiting, that is your money territory right there. The southeastern, portion of the United States. That's it. The southeastern region, that's where the best talent of football is produced in the country. And it's actually not even close. So you got that pocket. That's the number one pocket. But then there's also, because I said Texas is now a part of that. Texas is so damn big. You can argue Texas is its own damn region because it's so damn big. But now you're part of the SEC country. There's a Midwest pocket, Michigan, Ohio, Indiana, 5.9, 5.4, and 6.2 NFL players produced per million people. So that's a Midwest pocket. So it's SEC country, Midwest pocket. There's a Heartland pocket. And then there's an East Coast pocket with DC. Remember I told you guys about DC and how Maryland is producing a lot of NFL talent now? Because I've been tracking what metro areas are producing the most NFL talent in the country. And DFW is second behind Atlanta. And DC jumped into my top 10 recently. DC and Maryland and Delaware and New Jersey are the 4 states on the East Coast overrepresented in terms of disproportionately producing NFL players per million people. How about this little, you know what? I'll say that for what the facts actually. I got a factoid about, and I want you to think about it. What's the only state that has no current NFL players? There's one state. Does not have a current NFL player on a roster. It's only one. Think about that. We'll give you that in what the facts, what the stats. And then other than those other pockets, there's, honestly, Hawaii you can throw in there kind of on its own too. Hawaii's at 7.5 in terms of producing NFL players per million. So you essentially now you have 4. If you want to include Texas on its own, you can, because not even California is overrepresented. California is now underrepresented in terms of the national average. They're under the national average now. So only 21 states are over the national average. Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, Iowa, DC, Florida, Hawaii, New Jersey, Delaware, Maryland, Tennessee, South Carolina, North Carolina, Utah, Wyoming, Nebraska, Texas, Indiana, Ohio, Michigan. And like I said, all of those states, like there are 3 different. I say you want to throw Texas in there. I guess you can throw Texas and make it Texas its own region altogether. But basically, you have an East Coast region, you got a Midwest region, you got a Heartland region, you got SEC country, and then you got Hawaii, and maybe you want to include Texas separately. But you basically have 5 pockets of fertile talent in the country that are over the national average of producing NFL players per million people. And like I said, they're all, except for Hawaii, they're all connected. They're all bordering states. They all border, like New Jersey, Delaware, Maryland, DC, all right there bordering each other. Michigan, Indiana, Ohio, all bordering each other. The pocket of the heartland, Utah, Wyoming, Nebraska, Iowa, all border each other. And then your SEC country, they're all bordering states: Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Tennessee, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, Florida. Isn't that crazy? Like, how does that happen? None of them are separated. Like the once they are, like, I'm just saying, they have these pockets in the region, but they all end up being bordering states. Like, how does that happen? Really, those are the ones that are overrepresented. There's something going on there. There's something going on there. There's something sociologically linking that. Just don't. I not smart enough to figure it out. Somehow on text line, y'all can do it. All right, I'm just here to give you the facts, the stats. Oh, speaking of, we got that on the other side. What the fact was that? What's the only state in the union without an NFL player, has not produced an NFL player that's on the roster right now? I'll give you that on the other side, right here on the Rodcast, featuring Patrick Davis and Lifetime Local, and Rod Davis coming back from home. Hey, what's up, folks? Lifetime Local and Rod Davis here. Austin is a great city. It's one of the reasons people keep moving to Austin. Yes, that makes the traffic even worse. But as our city continues to grow and thrive, so do our friends over at Ironworkers Local Union 482. Many of the iconic landmarks that we love in this city were actually built and constructed by the skilled craftsmanship of Ironworkers Local 482, like the Pennybacker Bridge and DKR Stadium. The folks over at Ironworkers Local 482 don't just go to the office, they build it. So if you're looking for an exciting employment opportunity, or a refreshing career change, or you want a new challenge, or you want to feel valued by your employer, this is a great time to become a member of this great institution, a prestigious institution like Ironworkers Local 482. They're hiring over 3,000 people right now for another big project happening right here in Central Texas. They're offering competitive wages, competitive benefits, a pension plan. They even offer training for unskilled labor through their apprenticeship program. So right now is a great time for you to become a member of Ironworkers Local 482 and take pride in the type of teamwork and craftsmanship that help shape the future of our great city. So go online today and apply at ironworkers482.org. That's ironworkers482.org. All right, welcome back to What the Facts, What the Stats. How about this? Top WNBA All-Star fan votes from one year to the next from 2023. Um, um, Asia Wilson had 95,860 votes in 2023 for the All-Star fan vote. In 2024, that number is 607,300. This was actually a couple of days ago, actually, so it could be much higher. Aaliyah Boston in 2023 had 72,294 fan votes for the All-Star game, and in 2024, that number is 618,680. Let's see, try to get another to compare here. Brianna Stewart had 87,587 votes in 2023. She has now have 424,135 votes for 2024's WNBA All-Star fan vote. And Caitlin Clark, of course, leading all the ladies in votes with 700,735 fan votes for the All-Star game. Man, they really screwed up not putting her on the Olympic team. That was crazy. I still can't believe that we just I can't believe that was something that they decided was best for the game and for the national team to not put Caitlin Clark on there.
So I believe I've heard the theory because the All-Star game is the WNBA All-Stars versus the Olympic team, right?
I don't know. I actually do not know that. Is that really it? Interesting. That would be really cool. Now if that's the case, now we're talking about something that would be wild.
USA, So it's USA basketball women's national team takes on the WNBA All-Stars. So the theory is
that
the WNBA wanted Caitlin Clark to be on the WNBA team because they needed to have somebody. So if you say Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark are on the WNBA All-Star team and they're taking on the All-Star, the women's national team, it gives that game a little bit more oomph. Of having them both play against each other. She represents the WNBA. It was you have to have somebody fight against it. So that was the theory that I had heard, was that this was also a move done with WNBA in mind, that this All-Star game was going to be versus the national team. And if you put Caitlin Clark on it, then who's rooting for the WNBA?
I gotta check that out. I did not know that was the case. That's I like that. That's a nice bit. That's I like that spin. Is this a new thing, or has this been going on?
Well, I mean, I think
they only have the national team for the Olympics. It's only for the Olympic year.
Yes, and so but
that's still cool.
That is what I had heard was the reasoning of it, and then also they wanted Caitlin Clark to be in the WNBA instead of overseas playing in Paris. So there was theories of why it happened, that it may have not been necessarily leaving off because they really wanted to leave her off, but because of that they were actually using her in a way to benefit the league.
Okay. I like that. That's pretty cool. Now, if that's the case, you know what? Kudos to you. It's for you guys for being creative. That makes a lot of sense right there. I don't mind that. Now I got to check that game out.
It is funny because it is one of those things where we all see, we go, that's crazy. They go, well, here's this other thing. We go, oh, none of us, we just didn't even know that was a thing this year.
I didn't even know it was a thing. I swear. I wish somebody would have dropped that knowledge on me at the time when I'm ranting and raving about how they screwed up the not putting her on the national team. Also, speaking of Caitlin Clark, she did have the first triple-double for a rookie in WNBA history recently. Actually, it was a couple of days ago. It was against the Liberty, and she put up 19, 13, and 12 against the 17-3 at the time first place Liberty, and they beat them. Yeah, they beat them.
No, they're apparently playing better, and they're doing some big things now.
Yeah. Because Angel Reese had put up 27 and 10. She had a career high in 27 points, 10 rebounds, and 2 blocks that same day, I believe. And then Caitlin Clark upped her with the first triple-double for a rookie. Hey, ladies are balling. By the way, the Sky are on pace. Basically, the Sky are on pace to lose, which is Angel Reese's team, to lose more games this year than they did last year. The Fever are on pace to win, which is Caitlin Clark's team, to win 4 more games than they did in 2023. So, man, the women's basketball still having their moment. It's and I can't actually, I'm with Patrick on that. I did not know they're going to play the women's national team versus the WNBA All Stars. That's some good drama. I like it. I actually might have to make an appointment viewing for me now. When is that? Do we know when it is? I got to do some research. We'll let the people know. We'll do some research and let y'all know exactly when that is.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
is.
because I don't know the top of my head. I'll let you know.
It's
Well,
coming
you
up
got it right there,
July
something?
20th. July 20th.
Okay. I'm going to write that down in my notes here. Boom. July 20th. Bam. Got to do that. Please don't make it like during the day at some weird time or something stupid. Make it at least kind of
No, I
prime
think it's on
time
a.
so
I think
everybody
it's
can
on a
watch it.
Sunday. I think that's right. Is it a Saturday or
There you
Sunday?
go. All right,
It's on a
cool.
Saturday.
All right, there you go. All right, yeah, there you go. There you go. So everybody can watch it. All right, there you go. Thanks, Patrick, for that. We appreciate it. All right, that's what the facts, what the stats. We come back. We'll get into the moves that the Spurs made over the holiday break and talk about the Spurs plan in the Wemby window. We'll also get into some of the other moves that were made in NBA in the NBA trade mill. We'll get into that a little bit and also get into some Texas football conversation. Texas lost out on the number one receiver in the country to Oregon. We'll talk about what that means and could Phil Knight be going all in on NIL. All of that and more right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis on Lifetime Longhorn. Rod Rivers coming back on the horn. Welcome back to the Rodcast, a smooth so Monday edition of the Rodcast. That's when Patrick, the Idealionaire, my co-host, comes up with all the musically themed days of the week. But his intention for a smooth so Monday is to make sure your transition from the stress-free, relaxing, fun-filled weekend, especially the holiday weekend. Hope everybody had a great 4th of July weekend. To make that transition to the the very stressful and hectic work week packed with traffic and meetings. And you're going to have extra meetings because you had a short work week last week. So to make up for all the work that you missed, you're going to have extra meetings. So you probably got to go in early and stay late. And he wants to make that transition as smooth as possible for you because we know it's going to slap you in the face. That's the purpose of a Smooth So Monday. So we appreciate Patrick hooking us up with a Smooth So Monday. He also hooks us up with the topic for the big fat poll of the day, and it's already posted up there for you at the Horn ATX in the I'll say in the Twitterverse on the X. I don't even know how to say it. The X platform on the X app. It just sounds weird. It still doesn't flow. Elon.
Nope.
It still doesn't
Nope.
flow, and I still don't know why you changed it. But hey, man, you own it. You can call it whatever the hell you want to. So on the X platform, you can go check it out. The Big Fat Poll today. Patrick, let people know what the topic is for the Big Fat Poll of the day.
Big Fat Poll today. Which big free agent signing will make it further in the playoffs next year? Chris Paul, Klay Thompson, Paul George, DeMar DeRozan, all signings. Klay Thompson currently in the lead on the poll online with 56% of the vote. People say the Mavs going back. The Mavs will achieve again after a good season this year. I mean, the Mavs went the furthest this season, so you can believe he's got added. They will go back to that. Paul George second in the Eastern Conference, a little bit easier. No love for DeMar DeRozan and the Kings. No love for the Kings there.
Yeah, because they were supposed to be one of these teams. We talk about these teams in the West now, how all this new blood that's ascending with the Timberwolves, and now Oklahoma City's back, and they got a good young nucleus, and all these other teams, and now the Mavs are now back with a new. It seems like there's a lot of new blood. They were supposed to be one of those teams, and they had it for like 1 year, and then for some reason it just dissipated. Everyone was hype about them too.
Yeah, they went up, and then it just didn't seem to click last season the same way. They had some struggles at the end of last season as well, where they just weren't playing as well as they had been before. Didn't have a great matchup in the first round. So, you just those types of things happen. If you're, you fizzle out at the end, you hope to add in another veteran and another big scorer to help you out in those situations with DeMar DeRozan. So, we'll see. We'll see which one, but no love. He is currently coming in fourth.
Yeah, you're right about that. CP3 coming in. Yeah, that's third. Right now, Klay Thompson, because you saw what the Mavs did, and a lot of people believe, hey, man, Klay Thompson, he's got something to prove too. This is a Klay Thompson that could have chosen the Lakers, as we talked about. Even his own dad admitted he thought he was going to choose the Lakers, wanted him to choose the Lakers. LeBron had his pitch. LeBron, a pretty good salesman. So I'm sure that was a damn good pitch about, hey, it's Hollywood, baby. Don't you want to come be an A-list celebrity with us? No, Klay Thompson chose the Mavs because he's trying to prove something. I think he still wants to add to his own legacy. So you're getting a hungry, Klay Thompson with a chip on his shoulder. Hopefully that's a really, really good thing. So a lot of people are choosing Klay Thompson. He's leading right now this vote. 58% of it, of these respondents to the poll, believe that he's going to be the free agent signing, and the Mavs will go the furthest because of his addition. That West is tough, though. Man, we didn't even talk about the Suns, because they're in the fire sale kind of mode. But there's so many good teams in the West, you forget about teams with stars on them because there's just so many good young teams now in the West. It's loaded. So that's the only, like you brought it up. That's the only thing working against the Mavs is, man, it's just coming out of the West is a really Herculean task year after year.
Yeah, I mean, when you talk about OKC, Denver, Minnesota, I mean, that's three really, really good teams the Mavs are going to have to contend with.
That's the top. That's the top of it.
Yeah, and that's just three teams.
That's not the middle class.
Yeah, that's not what you're talking about, where you kind of thought Dallas was going to be in that next group, but then the Clippers are still going to be there with Kawhi and James Harden. You talk about the Kings now being in that conversation. The Rockets and the Spurs are trying to get in that conversation. The Lakers and the Warriors are trying to stay in that conversation.
The Lakers, yeah. Man, like I said, that West. Who's the worst team in the West?
I mean, it was the Spurs were up there last year. They
So
should be
Spurs.
better.
What I'm talking
this
about
year.
right now, looking at it, that's what I'm saying. It's going to be hard to determine like who's the worst team in the West after
Portland
the
was.
latest
Portland was.
makeover.
And don't forget Memphis.
Portland will be again.
But Portland, John Morant got hurt last season. John Morant comes back this season and plays a full season. That puts Memphis back in that picture.
Yeah, we forgot about Memphis
because they were just so bad last season because John Morant was suspended and then hurt.
Yeah,
but John Morant stayed out of the news now for almost a year.
He'll be back. Yeah,
so he'll be coming back. So what he does. What Utah does, depending on what they do with Lauri Markkanen, do they try and progress further, or do they fall behind because they get rid of Markkanen? They say they're not going to be there yet. New Orleans just got DeJounte Murray, so they just added DeJounte Murray. They may make a move with Brandon Ingram, but I'll add you in another piece.
Wow.
I mean, that West just got a lot of good teams.
It's good. That's like I said, it's really arrogant to say the Mavs would just make it back again because Klay Thompson is a nice addition, but man, you just brought up 3 or 4 teams. Forgot all about Ja Morant in Memphis. And hell, if Ja ever gets focused and doesn't get distracted, hell, man, that dude's easily considered to be one of the top 4 or 5 best players in the West.
Yeah. I mean, you put him back if he's, and now you also have to say after injury, is he going to be the same explosive player? Can he stay on the court? But you add that in, they added Marcus Smart. He had the injuries last year as well. Jaren Jackson Jr. wasn't as good, but he'll be back into playing to form with other guys on the team. And then they have the giant wild card in the draft, which is 2-time College Player of the Year Zach Edey got drafted to Memphis.
Yeah, that's a good point. Nobody, yeah. Do you think he's going to be a good player?
No, but I don't think he'll be able to go back and up and down the court. I think he'll be a decent player. I don't think he's going to be bad, but I also don't think he can stay long-term on the court.
He's going to be a game-changing.
Yeah, I just don't think in today's NBA, he can go back. But, guys have been proving you wrong before. If he gets a bigger shot, he has really good stamina. So there's a chance he could find a way to stay on the court. He's just got to be able to run a lot. And that's not the same case in college you have to do in the NBA. But you add him in. He's a giant. He's one of those ones. He's a wild card. So you just don't know that that's a guy that could help progress you. So yeah, there's just a lot of good teams in the Western Conference, which is where you say Paul George then. And you look at who are the teams we're talking about? They're all Western Conference teams that added people that all reloaded. Everybody in the East, you could say the Knicks got Mikal Bridges, so they're going after Boston. The 76ers get Paul George. And then everybody else.
3 teams. It kind of seems like it's 3 teams in the East, pretty much. Boston, Philadelphia, and New York right now. And I guess you got to throw Indiana.
Yeah, Miami tries to fight. Cleveland just got their new coach. They have a pretty good team. Milwaukee still got Giannis, so they'll be fighting with Dame and Giannis.
Milwaukee. If they stay healthy, Milwaukee.
But Orlando wanted to make a splash and try and get better, but they didn't really. So they'll be okay, but they're not in that next level of team.
Yeah, so it should be Paul George, but man, is Boston's just that good, and maybe Philly needs another piece.
Yeah.
So that's a good question though. Who do you think? Which one of those free agent signings do you think will take their team further in the playoffs next season? Chris Paul, Klay Thompson, Paul George, DeMar DeRozan. All right. Speaking of NBA, we'll come back and discuss NBA because the Spurs made a really good. I thought it was a really good move over the holiday break. So we'll discuss that with our resident Spurs fan. But first, let's get into the Horn headlines and get educated. Let's get updated and informed on all the top stories of the day with Patrick Davis and the Horn headlines.
All right, your Horn headlines brought to you by Top Gun Rentals and Lawn Equipment. In the NBA, the Sacramento Kings acquired free agent DeMar DeRozan in a 3-year, $74 million sign and trade deal. The Kings are trading Harrison Barnes in an unprotected 2031 pick swap to the Spurs and Chris Duarte and 2 second-round picks to the Bulls to complete the deal. DeRozan, a 6-time All-Star who will turn 35 next month, is coming off an impressive 3-year scoring run with the Bulls, where he averaged 24 points per game last season. In the MLB, the Astros dropped their series to the Twins 2-1 after a Christian Vasquez walk-off home run on Sunday. The Astros are now 2 games back of Seattle for the lead in the AL West, with 2 more series to go before the All-Star break. Roniel Blanco will get the start for Houston when they return to action against the Marlins on Tuesday. And the Rangers swept the Tampa Bay Rays over the weekend, including a dominant 13-2 win on Sunday. Corey Seager and Travis Janikowski both added at 4 RBIs each, while Nathan Eovaldi pitched another solid start, going 7 innings, only allowing 2 runs. The Rangers begin a series with the Angels tonight, hoping to continue their winning momentum, with John Gray taking the mound. And that is your Horn headlines.
All right, thank you, Patrick, for the Horn headlines. And yes, a part of that DeMar DeRozan deal, the Spurs get Harrison Barnes as a part of that deal. Spurs now with Harrison Barnes, 12-year pro, average like around 14 points per game for his career. He's 32 now, but played in every game last season. Shot around 38, 39% from three. Two I think he's got 2 years left on his deal. He's a guy that projects to be a guy as a starter for the Spurs, Patrick, but I guess he could also come off the bench if necessary. But CP3 and now Harrison Barnes with guys like Devin Vassell and Jeremy Sohan with Victor Wembanyama, looks like the Spurs, even though they're not necessarily, I think ready for the Wemby window, they definitely want to be more competitive. That's clear. They're not the tanking. I think part of the rebuild is done for them.
Yeah.
Now they want to start trending the other way.
Yeah, and again, last year I don't think they were really trying to tank last year as much as they were more, trying to make sure Wemby didn't get injured. They really were playing it very safe with Wemby. They made a mistake, we can say, of trying to the Sohan experiment at point forward. They tried to run that because they just didn't feel they had the point guard. There's not a lot of point guards out there. So they tried that last year. It did not work. What do they end up doing this offseason? Say, let's go get the old man and 39-year-old Chris Paul and bring him in, and we'll get a real guard, and then we'll draft a point guard in Stephen Cass so that we can have a guy going forward. But we're going to try and make waves and bring some guys in because we're aware that it's a problem that we have right now. Is bringing it is the point guard position. So that cost them some games early. They were a much better team down the stretch, but they just didn't have a ton of players. But I think you hit on that. They're trying now to bring in some veterans, trying to take that gap and really be closer to where Houston was last year, which is you want to be right in that play-in conversation. We just talked about it. The West is stacked. There's a lot of really good teams. So injuries matter depending on who can stay healthy, how you play down the stretch. But I think for the Spurs, you're trying to put yourself in a position to see if you can get a little playoff experience. If you can get in and, play in a playoff series as opposed to just a playing game, that gives you even more experience. Lets Wemby see a little bit more of what it is because you're just trying to progress and get through. But also you get Harrison Barnes in with the 2 years left on his contract. The contract isn't great. I think it's $20 million in his second year left. So it's not a contract where you say you're getting him for total. $10 million or whatever it is. That would be a steal. But also in today's NBA with what guys are getting paid, it's not terrible. His numbers dipped a little last year, but that was more in the fact that the Kings had drafted Keegan Murray, and they're trying to progress him to be your starting small forward. So Harrison Barnes took more of a bench role. I think when he goes to the Spurs, Harrison Barnes is going to end up being a starter in the role where they had Julius Champagnie in last year and had Keldon Johnson coming off the bench. Now, this is all keep in mind, all this could change because trades can still happen.
Yeah, it's a good point.
But the thought would be right now with this lineup, you start Harrison Barnes. He can come in, give you some stability, and then you bring that Keldon Johnson energy off the bench. There's no one better selling bringing you off the bench than Pop, who says, "Do you want me to show you the Hall of Fame video of Manu going in?" Trust me,
nice.
We get it. We know what he can do, and he played plenty of money. He made it to the Hall of Fame, trusting what we were doing. So I think that's what you'll see the Spurs try and put together this season. But they're still in the Lauri Markkanen conversations until that deal gets done or doesn't get done. There's a bunch of teams talking to the Jazz right now. I know that the conversations around that, the main rumor has been that the Jazz are, Danny Ainge drives a hard bargain. We know that. That's one of the reasons why the Celtics are built so well right now is because Danny Ainge was running that team for a long time and set them up for success. And so the rumor is he wants Devin Vassell, which is clearly the second best player on the Spurs right now. They don't want to give up Vassell. in that deal. I think they'd rather put a Keldon Johnson in there than a Devin Vassell, but they may be Sohan in that deal. There's, to all those talks, they're trying to figure it out. The Jazz, of course, want every player on the Spurs and all their picks to get one guy. So you're trying to find that middle ground. And so that is a question whether the Warriors try and give up more. The Warriors don't have as much to give up as the Spurs do. So the Spurs could get him if they really wanted to, but how much do you want to leverage your future to bring in one guy? And then you're going to have to pay him. So that contract is going to be expensive as well. All those pieces coming together. But as of right now, you can look at a lineup that you don't feel that there's a massive hole in your starting lineup anymore. You feel like you have some good players on the bench and a rookie in Stefan Castle. You have Keldon Johnson coming off that bench. So that gives you at least 7 deep that you feel you can play pretty confidently. You want to go to 8, 9 deep for this roster probably. And you have a couple more guys that'll be on this roster that'll be okay. But I'd say you're 7 deep right now if you're the Spurs. And last season you were probably 4 deep, maybe 5 deep. So it's a big step forward for the Spurs team. And they add more picks that are down the line that a team like the Spurs is just able to keep adding these picks that, you laugh because these guys are 8th graders that they're talking about. You're talking about 7th, 8th graders.
Yeah. Right. 2031, 2032, whatever.
Yeah. You're talking about 7th, 8th graders is what they're looking at.
Yeah.
But the reality of it, this is a franchise that has shown that you can do this, and it gives them options to make those trades either this year or in a couple of years. You can trade those picks off. They're going to gain value because they're unprotected. So they'll only gain value as it gets closer. And now GMs that want to get somebody to help build their team, those players will become available. Those picks will become more and more valuable when you start to see who those picks could be, when you start to see, where your team is building to. Those picks become more valuable. And then if you're the Spurs, you can keep 1 or 2 of them, and they become players when you're in a window with Wemby that's 5-6 years in his career. You're already paying him that second contract. He's making a lot of money. You don't really have cap room anymore to be going out and trying to add more pieces. And as you have to let go some of your guys, you're able to place them in the draft. That's what the theory is, that the Spurs are trying to build, that long-term building to try and put something together, that you have a actual plan where you don't get stuck where these teams get stuck, that they have a superstar and you make your run, and then you're spent. You have nothing else to give, and then you have to figure it out.
No, that's a good point because you can look at, and we talked about this already, the pick swaps are a big thing. If you go look at the next 7 drafts, the NBA has their 20 first-round picks that are basically owed via pick swaps over the next 7 drafts. And 9 of those are controlled by the Spurs and the Thunder. And I believe the Spurs control like 6 of those 9. And they're spaced out, right? In 2026, 2028, 2 in 2030. They got 1 in 2031. And I believe they just got 1 in 2032 based on this latest deal.
I think this was 2031. I think this was 2031.
Oh, okay. Well, Adrian Wojnarowski must have messed it up because he said 2032.
And it could be. I mean, those.
So maybe that's the one they were talking about. But either way, you see they're spaced out, and maybe that's kind of because the Spurs are giving themselves flexibility for the Wemby window, whenever that is. And I don't know if anybody knows it or they know it, but they'll definitely have flexibility about how to build around them with all those pick swaps in the future. And the pick swap thing, it's definitely a loophole that the Spurs have found. And we talked about this a little bit earlier. There's a couple of advantages to it. Number one, teams are willing to, trade unprotected, or basically are willing to be more open to trading unprotected picks when they're swaps as opposed to outright trades. They're also they're not subject to what we brought up as the Stepien rule, which means that teams can't just mortgage the future. You can't trade back-to-back first-round picks. You have to have at least 1 year in there. So that's why usually when their picks traded, they stagger it. They go every other year because you can't go consecutive seasons without a first-round pick in the NBA, but pick swaps are not subject to that rule. And also, basically, it allows you, what the Spurs are doing, to exercise and execute your own window. It allows you to be more flexible with your window. Spurs they're executing more pick swaps than anybody else in the NBA. So that's definitely got to be advantages to it because they're one of the best run and most forward-thinking progressive teams in
Yeah,
the NBA.
and I mean, it's that difference of, do you want 2 second-round picks, or do you want, a heavily protected first-round pick, or do you want an unprotected pick swap, which could end up being nothing. It could end up being nothing, but you're playing your betting odds that this team will be worse than you are in 6 years, and that you'll be able to use that pick and move yourself up. That's what they've been trying to build on. The Stepien rule is because a owner once for the Cavs ruined the Cavs for years because he basically traded a decade's worth of picks. So you have to have a first round pick, and you can't have no picks in consecutive years because owners would and GMs would. They would do it now and have no reservations about it and then come back and complain at the end of the day. So that's why that rule is in place. But the pick swap, you still get that first round pick. You still get it. And technically a pick swap, if one pick is 5 and the other pick is 6, you move up a pick. But the other guys still get a decent pick in it. Normally they end up being, you drop down to 28 or 30, and it kind of takes away the value of the pick for you. But for what guys want to do, and these GMs now, they understand they're not going to be there in 5-6 years, especially if they don't win. So most general managers and most ownerships want to be in win now mode. And, you can rebuild, but you got to rebuild within that 3 to 4 year frame. And so you better click it on and go. And the Spurs are okay with building conservatively for a long run and trying to set themselves up in a window to win.
Yeah, no, you're right about that. And yeah, they're doing a great job because at least if you're a Spurs fan, your team's going to be more competitive. But when they look at the development of Wemby, and if it's accelerated or what kind of path he's on, trajectory he's on, and then look at the West too, because we just talked about competitiveness. That's also part of your calculation in your window.
Yep.
It's like, whoa, who's dominating the rest right now, and how old is that core and that nucleus? And then you can start building around Wemby. So the Spurs are in a really, really good place. And I love that move.
And this is a great chance for the Spurs to, you experimented with a lot of young guys last year. You experiment now with some veterans and see, okay, how does Harrison Barnes play? Does he, his numbers dropped the last year, but does he work well with the Wemby? Does his 3-point percentage go up? Does he fall into a category of a guy who understands his role, understands what he's supposed to be? So he knows how to entry pass into Wemby. He works on his game to make the Spurs better and Wemby better because he knows that'll keep him on a team till he's 36, 37, more than scoring 25 points a game or scoring 20 a game. If he can make great passes and help the Spurs be a better contender, he'll play like Chris Paul's playing. Chris Paul's not his stats last few years. It's what they know he can do for a team. So he has more incentive to be that player. And then, Chris Paul, you trying to expedite to see more potential what Wemby could be, but it gives you more options and more what to look around without having to leverage your future of signing a 4 or 5 year deal to bring somebody in that if it doesn't work out, you're in a long-term deal. They're in 2 years, both Chris Paul and Harrison Barnes will most likely not be on this team, and you could be bringing in new guys still before that Wemby contract, before you're having to pay him and take up more of your cap space. So they're working on a plan right now, and I think they're doing well of bringing him in. I wouldn't be surprised to see at least one more move. Again, I say they're 7 deep right now. I wouldn't be surprised if they tried to get that to 8 deep, but they may lose some depth if they try and bring in a Lauri Markkanen and think, let's make our starting lineup really dominant and have a twin towers that can both shoot threes at a high clip.
Yeah. No, right now it's like I said, it's a really nice looking starting lineup that the Spurs have. If Harrison Barnes is going to be in there, but if he's not a part of the starting lineup, still he'll be a really, really nice piece coming off the bench for the Spurs. All right, we come back. We'll get into. We don't talk a lot of recruiting on the show, but I think there's a recruiting story, a national one brewing that has affected Texas' recruiting. So we'll talk about Texas losing out on the recruitment of Decorian Moore, the number 1 receiver in the country, who announced on July 4th that he was going to Oregon. There's a backstory to this, and I think a a really a more of a macro NIL story potentially that could be brewing. Also, we'll talk about the win that Texas got on the recruiting trail. Cade Phillips, who's a defensive back out of H Town. There's a trend also that we got to pay attention to, that Texas is starting to adopt a different philosophy when it comes to evaluating defensive backs. I like it, by the way. So as I'm being complimentary to this new philosophy that the Longhorns have. So we'll dive into that, go behind the burnt orange curtain, talk some Texas football on the other side, right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. I'm lifetime Longhorn Rod Davis coming back on the horn. Hey, what's up, folks? Lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers here. Let me tell you about Dr. Greg Eckert and his wonderful team. I'm a huge fan of Dr. U, and I owe him and his great staff a huge debt of gratitude. I initially went there for just a routine teeth cleaning and checkup, and that's when they noticed something that was amiss, something that was off. Apparently, my wisdom teeth were growing in sideways. What they found out, because they do very thorough checkups when you go to Dr. U's office, and they wanted to make sure that it did not become a disastrous situation for me. So they worked quickly, made sure that I was educated and informed about the entire process, got everything scheduled, had the procedure done. I was back at work within a couple of days, and my dental health and dental hygiene had never been better thanks to Dr. Eckert and his team. And since then, I've had fillings done there. I've had the cleanings done there, of course. I've had all types of procedures done with Dr. U, and I can tell you first and foremost, he is the best dentist in the Austin area. There's nobody better. Anytime somebody needs a recommendation from a great dentist, I am happy to recommend the best dentist in Austin, Dr. U, Dr. Record, and his great team. Now, he can handle any of your general dentistry, teeth whitening, dentures, porcelain crowns, veneers, dental implants, full mouth reconstruction, even root canal therapy, whatever it takes to ensure you're getting the best quality dental care available. So hopefully it's not something as serious as I have to deal with. It's something routine for you, but even if it is something serious, trust me, you're in great hands with Dr. Greg Eckert and his team. And right now, you also can give you a brand new smile in just one day, permanently secure to your dental implants. No time spent without teeth. You'll get temporary fixtures until they can complete your permanent smile, and you'll smile again with confidence and eat freely without pain or discomfort. So if you've been told your teeth need to be replaced, and if you've been told you need dentures or you have dentures, call Dr. Records, learn about this revolutionary alternative to dentures. It's a complimentary consultation, which means you got nothing to lose, but you got so much to gain, because Dr. U always says a confident smile can truly change your life, and he wants to change your life for the better. So what are you waiting for? Give him a call, 512-345-3166. That's 512-345-3166, or visit drrecord.com, drueckert.com. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. Time to get into some Texas football conversation and go behind the burnt orange curtain. I want to talk about Texas's latest commitment. The young man, Cade Phillips, actually got a personal anecdote about that commitment for the Longhorns. So, really excited for that young man. Congratulations to him. Corner defensive back out of the Houston area. I'll talk about why that's significant here in a second. Also, speaking of DBs, there is an NFL story related to a Texas defensive back that I want to get to as well. And we'll do that too. But first, over the holiday weekend, Longhorn fans were a bit heartbroken. I guess is the kind of the best way to say it, over a loss the Longhorns had on the recruiting trail. And I'll admit, I was a little surprised by this too. So the Longhorns were in on the recruitment of DeCorian Moore, who's the number one receiver in the country. He's from Texas. He's got family in Austin. Remember, he's the one that brought 11 family members to his official visit. And because of that, even myself, a lot of folks assume, oh man, he's definitely going to go to Texas. I believe a lot of the insiders had him trending toward Texas. And the thought was that he was going to end up, committing to UT. Well, on July 4th, he committed to Oregon instead. And a lot of Longhorn fans were a little shocked by this surprise, and then they were upset because the Longhorns have taken a couple of L's, and I don't think it's anything to be freaked out or panicked about, but some Longhorn fans are. They've taken some L's on the recruiting trail as of late. Actually, 2 to Oregon, because they were in on the recruitment of a young man, Josiah Sharma, who's a defensive lineman from Texas. I don't think he's from Texas actually, but he was being recruited by Texas, I should say, by Oregon, and he surprisingly also chose Oregon. A lot of people were surprised by that move. So Texas is taking a couple of losses in the recruiting trail, and there are some Longhorn fans out there that are starting to believe that the Longhorns aren't ponying up enough cash. One of the theories, they're not ponying up enough cash to get some of these big time recruits because they're going big game hunting, essentially all around the country. They got a board now with the top players at every position, and they're going big game hunting instead of just getting the best players in the state or regional. And they're losing some of those. But by the way, Josiah Sharman is from California. I apologize, from Cali, but chose Oregon. And so they've lost out on some of these. Brandon Brown recently lost out on him. They lost out on Myron Charles of Florida State. They lost out on Kevin Wynn. He's a kid that went to Florida State, and he's from Georgia. So they're losing some recruiting battles. But DeCorian Moore, that really hurt because he brought his grandma to the damn recruiting visit. So everybody's saying, oh, grandma's in the recruiting visit. Sark was there, hugging on grandma. Oh, he's going to Texas, and he chose Oregon. So that's the micro, and we'll talk about that in a second. I'll tell you why I think Longhorn fans are so disappointed. Longhorns are winning more than their fair share in recruiting. They'll be fine. So I don't think Longhorn fans will freak out. But I saw Rick Neuheisel quote, I should say. Rick Neuheisel recruited me when he was at Colorado. I like Rick Neuheisel. And he actually had some interesting things to say about Oregon. He was on college football Sirius XM, and he said he was at a recent coaches event, and he said it's no secret Phil Knight is supplying Oregon unlimited NIL resources. Rick said Phil is 86 and he desperately wants to see a championship, so they're willing to pay whatever it takes. Now, I don't know what Phil Knight's worth today. I think it's $30 billion or whatever it is. All right, so if he wanted to be the sugar daddy and be the straight up directive and the directive is just one booster and donor, a collective is a group of them. And if he wanted to be just the directive of Oregon NIL and single-handedly try to basically weaponize NIL to fund them to and finance them to a college football championship, he's got enough money to do it. I mean, 100 million, 200 million, 500 million, it won't break Phil Knight, but it could make Oregon football. And if he is at that point determined that he doesn't care that much about getting return on his investment, that he doesn't care that that money may not make money for him, because most billionaires, they're smart, so they want their money to make money. You don't really necessarily, that's not a guarantee you're going to get that type of return on NIL, but long-term investment, you win a national title, oh yeah, you'll get that money back tenfold in brand expansion, brand awareness, free media, all those types of things. And it's see kind of a down payment on the future of Oregon football. So you'll be able to recruit better on a bigger platform, all of that kind of stuff. So if he wants to do this, and it may cause a chain reaction if Oregon actually is successful with this blueprint. They're successful and he wins a national title. And basically the narrative is, oh no, he's a billionaire and he decided, yeah, I don't care. I'll spend $200 million. If it'll bring us a national $200-300 million, if it'll bring us a national title. There are not a lot of billionaires around the country. All right. They're very limited. And even fewer billionaires who are alumni of football programs who are capable of winning a national title. And probably even fewer, as Patrick mentioned earlier, that are willing to just spend money and not get any return necessarily on that investment, not a true monetary return on that investment. It'd be return in other ways. So that's just very few. But there are some. And he is one of them. So Texas losing out on Decorian Moore, losing out on Josiah Sharma, losing out on some of these players, maybe because Phil Knight is decided, no, we are at an unlimited. We have unlimited NIL budget at this point. We won't even put a cap on it. And hell, Texas might have a cap. It may be the largest cap in the country. They may have the largest, other than maybe Oregon, who says their NIL is unlimited now. But Texas may have the largest NIL budget in the country, but it's still probably a cap on it.
Yeah.
And what they're saying essentially about Phil Knight is he's saying, no, there's no cap on ours. Come here. You'll get top dollar if you're one of the best players. And that is something that's different than the collectives and directives kind of mission statement around the country has been. We hadn't had a sugar daddy and a booster decide, I don't care about losing hundreds of millions of dollars. I just want a national title. Because that's crazy.
Yeah, we basically haven't.
If he's going that route, it's going to be a game changer.
We haven't had the eccentric billionaire to say, well, I can't get buried with it, so might as well try and win a title.
And I don't like my kids that much, so I'm not going to leave them that much money.
Hey, we've seen that. We have seen this with many billionaires, especially in sports, of guys going really hard at the end, and you see their kids being like, Dad, maybe you should sell the franchise. Maybe do this, and maybe we don't give out that $200 million contract, and maybe we don't do this. Maybe I don't want to get a job.
You're right.
I don't.
Yeah, I don't have to worry about money, Dad. So quit spending your money, which returns in our money and my money after you're gone. No, I mean he's got 30 something billion.
He could spend.
And the kids are fine.
He could spend $30 billion on Oregon, and he would still be a billionaire, and his kids would be okay. Because $1 billion is a lot of money.
Yes, you're right about that. No, it's like, but it's that old joke about Chris Rock. He always said, if Bill Gates had Oprah money, he'd try to kill himself. Because the lifestyle you become accustomed to,
yes.
It's like, it's different levels of billionaire. But he's right. That is true. There are different levels of billionaire. Texas got some billionaires, but do they got billionaires like worth? Now they got some Phil Knight type billionaires, or are they that eccentric where they'd really go, no, I'll spend $300 million. To win national, I'll spend $305 million. They actually might. And I'm saying if this works for Oregon, I think there will be another billionaire representing a football program that decides to do the same thing. I guarantee. I'm not saying they're going to be successful either, because I'm not sure that's how you ultimately are going to win in the NIL transfer portal era. But it's an interesting approach, and not everybody can do it. Phil Knight. So that's what Rick knew. But I will say they have gotten in just the last week. They've gotten the number 1 wide receiver in the country, number 4 cornerback in the country, number 3 tight end, number 5 running back, number 7 defensive lineman. And Texas has been in on, I think, 3 of those recruits and thought they were getting 2 of them. Not. By the way, for Texas fans, this is why you're disappointed, and it's okay. You're disappointed in losing his recruits, and the sky's falling because you have been riding this wave of positivity all off season, and it's almost euphoric at this point. You guys are high on positivity and positive momentum. Played in the college football playoff, damn near was a couple of plays away from playing in a national title. All right, won the Big 12 title. Had 11 guys drafted. Xavier Worthy sets the record at the combine for the 40-yard dash. Quentin Ewers is on the cover of the new video game that's coming back. Archie Manning balls out in a spring game, so the future looks bright. It was a lot of positive vibes, and I think the belief was that will naturally translate to more wins on the recruiting trail. And the truth is, it hasn't. It's just been exactly the same as it's always been. You're like, well, with the brand is doing so much better than it has in previous years, we should be doing better in recruiting than we have in previous years. And I'm not saying I don't agree with that, but we all agree it's not translating as of yet. It's pretty much just been the same as it has been. And I think that's the disappointment. You expected that wave to also end up in a tidal wave of recruiting momentum. It just hasn't happened. It just hasn't happened. And will it happen? I don't know. I know the game has changed, though, because Texas is going after national big time recruits, big game hunting. And that's why you're going to strike out more because you just don't have. And by the way, some of these guys, think about these guys who have been recruited now. They're 18 years old, right? 17 years old, 18 years old. When Texas was good last year. But as they were growing up, Texas wasn't good. Texas wasn't good when they were like 12, and when they were at their most impressionable age, Texas wasn't good.
But I will.
Wasn't good. 05, you didn't going back to 05. These kids don't remember 05.
I will tell you something that is actually going to be helpful to Texas long term, or at least for people coming out in the next 4 or 5 years, is that Texas is good when ESPN 25 college football or NCAA 25 college football comes out. The fact that when they're going to play video games, these kids all play it. And Texas is going to have one of the better rosters, and so people will play as Texas in there. That will continue to help. That, oh, no, I always play as Texas in my game, so I put my created character was on Texas. So I have a certain affinity in my brain, whether, it's real or not, that I like Texas. And I think that'll be a benefit to them. It'll be a benefit to, Oregon and Michigan. A lot of teams, it'll help them grow, but you're lucky you're not bad now because you want to be one of those teams that people want to jump in on and use in dynasty modes and use to play against their friends and go, no, I'll just always be Texas because I know they got their players.
Nope, I agree with you 100%. And like I said, the last time Texas was good consistently was mid-2000s. Half these kids, they were babies at the time or something like that, if possible. And even when Texas is good in 2018 and they were good last year, those are outliers. So they need to put together a consecutive stretch where Texas is good. And then I think you can look to that being changing the narrative and changing the perception of Texas for future generations. But yeah, I mean, Texas right now, they haven't necessarily done it but 1 year. Let's see if they can put it together over a stretch here in the SEC. And I think that'll also give you that bump you're looking for in recruiting. Speaking of the bump in recruiting, they did get the commitment of Cade Phillips, who's a DB from the Houston area. I got a chance to actually coach this young man. Shout out to Anthony Williams, who gave me a chance to be a guest coach at one of his showcases. And Cade Phillips was actually one of the young men I got a chance to coach. So I like his skill set. I mean, he's long, rangy, explosive, hip explosion. I mean, a guy that can really get in and out of his breaks. Also, really great angles to the football. From the safety position. I think he can play corner and safety. Kind of gets me to what I'm talking about. That's what Texas is recruiting now. They're recruiting things they can't coach. They can't coach speed. This guy runs 21.5 in the 200. They can't coach coverage. I've been telling you that for a while. That's something naturally guys know how to play sticky coverage or they don't. He can play coverage at cornerback or safety. And you can't coach versatility. And that's something that's programmed pretty early into the DNA of a player. And remember, that's kind of the buzzword when Sark's talking about some of these new DBs they're bringing in. He wants versatile DBs with versatility in their skill set. The last crop they brought in, position flex, versatility, those were the buzzwords that Sark kept talking about, kept mentioning when describing their skill set. And this young man also has the versatility, can play corner, play safety, even play nickel for you. It's going to give you more solutions to potential problems the offense could present to you when you have guys who can move around the chessboard. So you're not, you're not so rigid on defense. It gives you flexibility with the rules that you have to have on defense when you got flexible, movable chess pieces around that you can move around the chessboard. So he's one of those guys. So Cade Phillips, congrats to the Longhorns. So they're getting some wins on the recruiting trail. You ain't gonna get everybody you want. It's like that old the song, right? You can't always get what you want. All right. You can't always get what you want, but if you try sometime, you might find you'll get what you need. So Texas will get what they need. You just may not get every recruit what they want. So we'll get into that a little bit more as the week goes on, because I'm sure there'll be more recruiting news for the Longhorns. But coming up, we got off the record. There was a white party. Speaking of billionaires, there was a white party where NFL players and celebrities engaged in a beach football game. Two quarterbacks, Tom Brady and CJ Stroud. We'll tell you who won on the other side right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. I'm Lifetime Longhorn. Rod Davis coming back on the horn. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. Want to get to this story. I got it from the New York Post. So there's an annual all-white party that's thrown by Michael Rubin. It's like a 4th of July tradition for him. And it invites all these different celebrities and Hollywood A-listers. They come out to enjoy his Hollywood. It's a beach party, so I think it's a 4th of July beach party. And it was actually it's in the Hamptons. And one of the main headlines coming out of this white party, and usually it's just stuff on social media, pictures and stuff like that, was that a football game broke out between a team quarterbacked by Tom Brady and another team quarterbacked by one CJ Stroud. Shout out to CJ Stroud for getting invited to the white party, man. It's pretty big time. As a Texans fan, I like the CJ Stroud, having enough clout to be invited to the Reuben White party. Tom Brady's team lost to CJ Stroud's team. How about that? 5-4. I guess they were just playing touchdown as a point. The other players who were playing, It said Odell Beckham Jr. is in here. Micah Parsons was playing. DeMar Hamlin was playing apparently in the beach football game. Travis Scott, Michael Rubin himself, Quavo was also out there. So there you go. Michael Rubin and my man CJ Stroud getting invited. I mean, I wonder how many NFL players actually were invited to it. And considering my man CJ Stroud's among the elite celebs of the league already,
I know that
pretty good.
I
Good
think
for
he's
him.
invited some young quarterbacks before that he thinks he wants to do more business with too.
Because he's a Fanatics like founder, right?
Yeah, so I think there's parts of it where he's like, okay, this guy's on the all right, we got to get him, invite him out, so we have a good relationship. So when we negotiate, that we're
That's
friendly.
smart.
And so I think he's had those. I know
That's
Joe
smart.
Burrow was there last year, I think, or Joe Burrow was there a couple years ago, and that was a start because it's
Okay.
always just like, oh look, the new quarterback who ends up there. But I think he has young quarterbacks there every once in a while.
I got you. And Brady's always there because Brady's the GOAT. You
Yeah,
get
Brady does.
there,
Brady
you're
goes
good.
wherever he wants.
Brady, true. I mean, yeah, who's gonna turn away Brady? Does Brady need an invitation to go to the parties? Like he can literally crash any party he wants, and they're gonna let Brady in because
Yeah,
he's
if he
the
walks
GOAT.
up, you don't check him on the guest list. He just gets in.
No, you don't need to. It's Tom Brady. It's like even if he's not on the guest list, I'm letting him in. Trust me, the person who's throwing the party won't mind Tom Brady wanting to come in and hang out at his party. There you go. You want to be that famous one day. So there you go. That is that was the football game that broke out in the Hamptons at the all white party. And my man, hey, CJ Stroud won. It's good signs. I told you guys, CJ, this is the year I think CJ Stroud could contend to win the MVP. And he's getting a lot of pub in the offseason. And we talked about how he's very outgoing, very charismatic. Him and Michael Parsons have that podcast they do together, and he's not afraid to give his opinions. He could be one of those players in the media. Maybe won the award for media darling. I forgot the name of the award, but voted on by the media as the player that the media likes the most. I'm telling you, CJ Stroud, the MVP, not crazy. I believe he has the third best odds right now to win MVP. Not crazy, not out of the realm this year. All right, we come back. We'll discuss some NFL news, notes, and nuggets on the other side. There's always drama in Big D, especially when it comes to the Dallas Cowboys. We'll discuss that drama. We'll also get into some other NFL news and nuggets. Why does scoring first matter so much in football? Got some numbers to back that up. And we'll discuss the fertile recruiting regions or the fertile football regions of this country. All right, the most fertile football regions. What states and what regions produce the most NFL players based on this new study per million people in those states? We'll get into that too on the other side. All that and more right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. I'm Lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers coming back on the horn. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. It is a smooth so Monday. My man Patrick, the co-host and the idillionaire on the show, always comes up with the musically themed days of the week. And the purpose of a smooth so Monday is to make the transition from your stress-free, fun-filled, happy, good time, so the weekend, especially your holiday weekend, to make that transition just a little bit smoother to the hectic, stress-filled work week filled with meetings and traffic and all types of responsibility and adulting. Nobody wants to have any of that. So my man Patrick makes that a smooth transition for you with a smooth Soul Monday. So we appreciate that. Also, we appreciate the topic for the big fat poll of the day. And the people, man, they have spoken. The big topic for the big fat poll of the day: which big free agent signing will make it further in the playoffs next year? And right now, out of the four choices, Chris Paul, Klay Thompson, Paul George, DeMar DeRozan, Klay Thompson leading the charge there. 61% of you, a lot of Mavs fans, believe that Klay Thompson will help make the Mavs. Basically, I mean, to take them further in the playoffs next year. I mean, to go further
I
in the
think
finals,
further, but it won't be further in the finals. It'll be
win the
further than
title,
any of these
or at
other
least getting
guys.
back there.
Yeah, it'll be getting further than any of the other
Okay.
guys. So Chris Paul, will get further than the Spurs or
I gotcha.
yeah. So it'll be that. But yeah, no love for DeMar, no love for the Kings whatsoever.
Yeah, I can understand that. I mean, Chris Paul, that's the Spurs. Klay Thompson, that's the Mavs. At least with Paul George, he's more of a known commodity. Going with the 76ers too,
Yeah.
and 76ers got an MVP on that team.
And it's Eastern Conference.
What
so.
do the Kings have, and what is DeMar DeRozan going to bring to the Kings? Like, what he's going to bring to the Kings?
More
he's going to be a good player
more
for them,
scoring.
but is he actually going to put them over the top?
But I think they have
Yeah.
a chance to get what, second round, third round. There's a chance they get the Western Conference Finals. There's a chance they can. I would say I'd say there's more of a chance than Chris Paul. There's more of a chance than Spurs because they just have a better team around him right now.
No, of course, I agree with that. Yes, I agree with that. They'll go. I think yes, the Kings should be better than the Spurs, and. Well, the Mavs, like I said, if you look at what they're bringing back and what they've accomplished last year, I can see why the Mavs. I mean, even though it's a lot of Mavs fans voting in the poll, I can see why the Mavs would be the pick. I mean, the Mavs would have been my choice too. Paul George and the 76ers. I worry about Embiid and his health late in the season. Not that you have to worry about that with everybody in the NBA. And then with the Mavs, the West, as we talked about, it is a treacherous journey through the Western Conference. The regular season will be tough enough, but then the playoffs, play in being a part of that, man, you could just a battle of, just kind of I do ultimately think in the West, your path, as you pointed out, matters a lot, but there's so many teams in the middle class or lower in the Western Conference that are actually good teams, or it could even be really good teams if they stay healthy and everything falls right for them. So it's just tough. I said I like the Mavs, and I did predict the Mavs would have an MVP, and they would. I thought that Kyrie Irving trade would be really good for them. I thought it'd work out. I didn't think they'd make it to the finals. So they overachieved last year. Don't know if that's an outlier or if that is the coming of age of Luka being considered one of the top three best players in the game. He's going to be there for a while. So lots to consider, but good stuff there with Patrick and the Big Fat Poll. They go check it out at the Horn ATX on the X platform there. We'll get to some NFL news, notes, and nuggets, but first let's get informed, educated, and updated on all the top stories today with Patrick Davis and the Horn headlines.
All right, your Horn headlines brought to you by Top Gun Rentals and Lawn Equipment. In the NBA, the Sacramento Kings acquired free agent DeMar DeRozan in a three-year, $74 million sign and trade deal. The Kings are trading Harrison Barnes and an unprotected 2031 pick swap to the Spurs, and Chris Duarte and a 2 second-round picks to the Bulls to complete the deal. DeRozan, a six-time All-Star who will turn 35 next month, is coming off an impressive three-year scoring run with the Bulls, where he averaged 24 points per game last season. In the MLB, the Astros dropped their series to the Twins 2-1 after a Christian Vasquez walk-off home run on Sunday. The Astros are now 2 games back of Seattle for the lead in the AL West, with 2 more series to go before the All-Star break. Raniel Blanco will get the start for Houston when they return to action against the Marlins on Tuesday. And the Rangers set the Tampa Bay Rays over the weekend, including a dominant 13-2 win on Sunday. Corey Seager and Travis Janikowski both added 4 RBIs each, while Nathan Eovaldi pitched another solid start, going 7 innings, only allowing 2 runs. The Rangers begin a series with the Angels tonight, hoping to continue their winning momentum, with John Gray taking the mound. And that is your Horn headlines.
All right, thank you, Patrick, for the Horn headlines. All right, we'll get a Rangers report for you too. I neglected to tease the Rangers report we got coming up for you, so we'll get to that as well as the rant of the day coming up later on in this hour. We also in the rant of the day, I got 2 different topics we'll get into. We'll talk about scoring first in football, why it matters so much, give the stats on that, and also the biggest or the best states for producing NFL talent and regions, really. I actually noticed this trend when I was looking at this new study done about states that produce the most NFL players per million citizens, per million people in that state. So we'll get to that too coming up here a little bit later on. But first, I want to get to the Cowboys drama. There always is some Cowboys drama. So Dak Prescott over the holiday weekend was spotted in a boot. And a lot of Cowboys fans freaked out when they saw him in the boot, thought, oh, man, he's hiding an injury. Dak Prescott got hurt when that happened. How did he get hurt? Because it wasn't during the OTAs or mini camp, so he must have done something on his own. That was cleared up, I would say, within hours, because it became such a big story and went viral with a photo of him in Cabo San Lucas with a boot on. Here, Todd Archer of ESPN points out that Dak Prescott recently suffered a minor right foot sprain that temporarily required a walking boot. They do not know when this foot sprain happened. The Cowboys last held an organized workout on June 5th. They don't think he suffered the injury there, but he could have suffered the injury there. At least he did not have the walking boot at the time. The injury is not expected to impact Dak Prescott when the Cowboys hold their first training camp practice on July 25th. It was unclear at the time the picture was taken in Cabo San Lucas when Dak was on vacation. And they say he is no longer wearing the boot. The picture was taken last Wednesday. And as of when this report came out, which was this past weekend on Sunday, he is no longer wearing the boot. So within a couple of days. So it seems like it was all precautionary, and it seems like it was just him being safe, just trying to be overly cautious with the injury that he had. And it was a small, minor right foot sprain is being described here. So, nothing to see here. No big deal. Looks like Dak is going to be healthy. He was just making sure. Worst case scenario, if something did happen, he was safeguarding himself against any injury while on vacation. So good for Dak.
Yeah.
But that story did blow up. People
it did.
got a little bit crazy.
Yeah, I saw it pop up when I wasn't paying the most attention over the weekend at some things, and I still saw that story come up and had to look into it to go, what happened? And then you just realize it was really nothing. But yeah, it's, ankle injuries happen a ton. Yeah. He could have just been doing a workout and slipped a little bit off stepped on a stone or something, whatever you're doing, or going on a run and you just take a wrong step. And it feels like if you ever were in school and someone got hurt and then all of a sudden they had crutches the next day and you're like, there's no way you're hurt that bad. It felt like it's more very much precautionary. It's a big season for me. It's a big time right now. We're talking,
huge.
Life-changing money that is about to be done, whether it's at camp or whether it is after the season. He is going to get life-changing money most likely. So you want to play it on the safe. I'm sure he owned a boot at the house, so he just said, let's throw this boot on just to be safe. So I feel good about it, getting, walking around, and if I'm going to be walking in some sand and maybe hurt myself or get on a boat and I don't want to slip where it's wet, and all of a sudden, now I'm out for training camp and Jerry's calling my agent saying, you want us to invest in this guy? Can't even stay healthy in the off season. And I get why he put the boot on, but it is funny. I'm sure that's not the way you want to spend your vacations. Waking up and like, nope, somebody saw it. Of course they did. and now I have to explain it. And I think
Yeah.
it's for the best, and as long as he addressed it, which he did, it's no big story. It would have been worse if he did not address it and just let it hang out there. But he knew what it was. He's dealt with
He
this
had no
stuff.
choice.
He's been a Cowboys
Yeah, he had
quarterback
no
long
choice.
enough to know that would be a story.
Exactly. It's like, dude, it's the slow season, and you were spotted with a boot on in a year where everybody expecting you to set the market for the highest paid quarterback in NFL history, highest paid player in NFL history. Oh yeah, because that's a serious injury. Then it actually does affect the contract negotiations. It's not, so it won't. No big deal there. But that was the big story that kind of blew up for the Cowboys. Also, this is a minor story, but I think it highlights a unique issue for the Cowboys. And I don't know if it's necessarily unique as much as it is all too common with the Cowboys. Um, but the Cowboys always have like a lot of beef and pettiness within the organization, whether it be with current players, between current players, former players, between current and former players, between players and their family members, and players' family members criticizing the team. Like, it's just they got a lot of that happening all the time. We see, like, every week we talk about one of these different stories. And last week it was Micah Parsons and Mike Parsons and Malik Hooker. Remember that one? Malik Hooker said something on a podcast about Michael Parsons, and Michael Parsons didn't like it. Like, Parsons had a response, had to delete the response on Twitter, and then the family drama always plays out publicly for the Cowboys. Hell, we had the Michael Parsons and DeMarcus Lawrence thing after the season. They lost to the Packers, and they were in some kind of beef. It's always, hell, remember the Jesse Holly, Michael Parsons? I know it seems like there's a common thing, but it's not just Micah. It's CeeDee Lamb's mama criticizing Dak, saying Dak ain't it. It's all these. Dak's brother always got something to say about the team and how they don't build enough around Dak. They don't respect Dak enough. That's always coming up. Des Bryant's always got. So there's just always this beef and kind of pettiness within the Cowboys organization. And I think they kind of promote it. They embrace it, actually, because they're the number one TV star on America's number one TV show, which is the NFL. And they are kind of a reality TV show. And, that's why Micah having his own podcast and how that's come up. And matter of fact, that was one of the things Malik Hooker brought up, was Micah and his podcast. They're just kind of the Kardashians of the NFL. So their family drama plays out publicly, and they don't mind it because it keeps them in headlines. As we know, pettiness pays off. It actually does. Pettiness pays. As what it's done for women's basketball, them being petty and having beef. Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark really has brought a whole new level of interest to the game. Yeah, we just saw it in hip hop, right? Kendrick Lamar and Drake in a beef has kind of revitalized hip hop to an extent. We like beef, we like petty, it sells. And I think the Cowboys, whether knowingly or unknowingly, have embraced that mantra. And I think for Jerry, it's definitely knowingly. But the latest one is CeeDee Lamb and Cole Beasley. Don't ask me why they got beef, but they just did on social media, and they played out. So CeeDee Lamb always releases these really cool workout videos because he's just a freak of nature. And you can see how his footwork is elite. I've never seen anything like the footwork of CeeDee Lamb. He might have the quickest feet of any wide receiver in the league right now. I mean, you talk about feet on fire kind of thing. And he tweeted out one of his workout videos just showing some of the things that he does. And then Cole Beasley tweeted out, "Man, just do some heavy squats and power cleans. ... Thought he might have been joking when he said it. Maybe he was joking, maybe he wasn't. Then the Cowboys Twitter, they get after Cole Beasley. What are you talking about? Are you trying to tell CeeDee Lamb how to work out? Blah, blah, blah. And then he tweets out in response to the criticism, "Give me 180 targets off the couch and I eclipse 1,000. Stop looking at the stats and check the tape. As far as getting open goes, I'm confident I did that with the best of them." And then CeeDee Lamb ultimately has to respond, in which he didn't have to respond, but he did. "I don't need 180 targets to touch a band. Pull up tape. I'd match you route for route on getting open. Just chill." There's always some drama, manufactured, real, authentic, inauthentic, between Cowboys players and former Cowboys and Cowboys family members. They just like the drama. They're like TNT, and it's good for them. It keeps them top of mind, keeps us talking about the Cowboys, which is why they are the number one TV star on America's number one TV show. So I get it. That's part of it, but it's always some drama with the Cowboys. And I'm sure it happens at other teams. It just does. Number one, doesn't play out publicly as it does with the Cowboys, who kind of embrace that culture. And I don't think it's as common. It happens, but the Cowboys, like I said, it happens like weekly, like every other week. There's a story like this about the Cowboys.
And that's, I remember Dalton Schultz came out and said one of the differences between Houston and Dallas was, the weight room. And he said in Dallas, it had a big glass window and the tourists walk by and they tap on the glass. And he was like, it's just different.
Yes.
It's not worse. It's just different. And that was the Dalton Schultz way of saying that. But that's kind of thing is a lot of teams, I think when this happens, it's first of all, everything with the Cowboys is going to be magnified. They're going to be on national news all the time.
Of course.
But you have to then add in that Jerry and the Cowboys don't necessarily call a meeting right away and call an agent and say, that needs to come down. You guys need to squash that. Don't be doing that. We need to be about winning. They don't do that. And if it doesn't come from the top and they're not going to Mike McCarthy and saying, hey, why are you letting your team be out of control? I think the question would be with Jerry, if those things broke out and Mike McCarthy tried to squash it, that Jerry would go, hey, stay out of that business. That's fine. Let the players do what the players do. We're going to go win football games instead. We don't need to worry about that stuff. So it's just a different thought of the culture. And it's something that you can look at and say it probably doesn't help them win, but I can't say that it hurts them at all either, because it's not really infighting. That we'll see more squabbles on other teams that are fights in camp and probably things of that nature than we'll see about the Cowboys of that they get into a lot more squabbles online. They have these stories of ex-Cowboys. Once they get out of it, then they seem to have some sort of reservation or something that they want to go back and make a point after the fact that they're gone. That happens a lot more with the Cowboys, but it doesn't seem to be player on player in games and that are both playing on the team at the same time. That's not as much as some other teams. You do see that of guys not liking each other on their own team and blaming each other for losses. I don't think that's quite as much. You do see it with family members, though, sometimes. You do.
No, you're right. You see it with family members. No, you do, because you brought up the Odell Beckham Jr. thing. That you do see it with family members. Hell, Colt McCoy's wife. Remember, she called into a radio show unsolicited to talk about, what was going on with basically amateurism at the college level. I think that was one thing she brought up. But so family members, they have opinions and they make them publicly known. And yes, so the Cowboys aren't unique in that aspect, but I will say it happens more often with the Cowboys. And like you said, everything is magnified because it's the damn Cowboys too. So anyway, there you go. Enough Cowboys. Oh, but by the way, also something I've been thinking about for the Cowboys, though. I've been thinking more and more about this Cowboys running game. I think the Cowboys running game is just going to be poor. It's going to be below average. So more and more fantasy folks out there. I don't even know if you had your fantasy drafts are going to happen and when they're going to happen. Jake Ferguson is somebody to keep in mind in the fantasy realm. Just throwing it out there. I mean, this is a guy that had career highs in receptions and receiving yards last year, 5 touchdowns. Dak loves him. Finished the season with that 10 reception, 93-yard performance. That was the highest single game fantasy football performance among tight ends all last year by any tight end in the league. 37 points per reception points. You go look at it compared to 22 to 23. He was one of 7 tight ends with 100 targets comparing those 2 years. Weaker running game means he's probably gonna get more targets, less target competition in year 2 for him too, because you got some of the receivers that are gone. They're still trying to figure out who's gonna be the number 3 receiver. It's gonna be Jake Ferguson. The Cowboys are gonna throw it more. They were already 6th in pass rate. So doing more research on the Cowboys, I'm high on Jake Ferguson. I'm big on him. I think he's gonna have a big year for the Cowboys. So throwing it out there. So we're talking Cowboys. Want to throw it out there as well. All right. Let's get our Rangers report, and then we'll hit the rant on the other side. And I got 2 different topics we'll hit in Raj round today, and we'll do that when we come back. But first, let's do the Rangers report.
Rangers Report is brought to you by Texas Truck and Trailer.
All right, Rangers. Hey, man, they're winning back to some of their winning ways. The Rangers beat the Rays 13-2 on Sunday at the Gilf, finishing off their second sweep of the season, just their third winning homestand all season long. Hopefully, it is foreshadowing better things to come for the Rangers. The Rangers have been hovering around 500 all season long. The Rangers recorded a season high 19 hits. That's a reason to be optimistic. They recorded a season high 19 hits. They scored 13 runs. That's the most since May 17th at Oakland when they scored 15 runs. It was the most runs Texas has scored at home since September 20th, 2023. Against the Red Sox when they scored 15 runs. The 11-run win also marked the Rangers' largest margin of victory of the season and the most decisive win since a 12-0 win in Anaheim on August 14, 2023. So it seems like it could be one of those wins or series wins for the Rangers that really series sweeps, I should say, for the Rangers that gives them a lot of momentum. That is the hope because they look so good doing it. And maybe it could just been, the Rays, and maybe the Rays were just off that day, but Rangers look like they're old. So they look like a defending world champion. And they haven't really looked like a defending world champion all season, really. Mostly because of injuries. They just hadn't looked that good all season.
No, and I mean, I think you're going into that second half.
Rangers also
that second half of the season where as we get further into it, this is where the Rangers you expect to make the run. And you kind of expected it a little bit earlier than what they're doing. But if this is where they hit it, we're almost at that second half. We are 2 series away. The All-Star game is next week. So this is where you really want to start ramping up the intensity. Corey Seager's back from that little injury, so he's back again. So that when he got hit in the wrist, he's playing baseball again. Had 4, played really well the other day. So as long as those guys start playing a little bit better and this starts going the way, then you look at that big AL West competition down the stretch that everybody's been looking forward to.
Yeah, good stuff. And speaking of the All-Star game, you have 2 Rangers who ended up being selected as All-Stars. Second baseman Marcus Semien has been selected to the American League roster via player voting. He has been an All-Star selection in 2 straight and 3 of the last 4 seasons. One of those with Toronto. Semien is one of just 5 Texas second baseman ever selected for an All-Star game, joining Dave Nelson, Julio Franco, Alfonso Soriano, Ian Kinsler on that list. He also joins Franco, Kinsler, and Soriano as Rangers with multiple selections at second base. And Kirby Yates also selected to the All-Star team. Kirby Yates selected to the American League roster via player voting. Yates is the first Texas relief pitcher since Joe Nathan in 2013 and the 5th different Rangers pitcher to make the team in the past 5 All-Star contests. That's Mike Minor, joining Mike Minor, Kyle Gibson, Martin Perez, and Nathan Eovaldi. According to StatHead, Yates is only the 5th pitcher in club history to be named an All-Star in his age 37 or older season, joining Nathan and Kenny Rogers and Nolan Ryan and Charlie Huff in 1986. So right now, Kirby Yates, arguably, he's been one of the best relievers in Major League Baseball, period. His ERA, 0.86, second in Major League Baseball, opposing batting average, first at 126 in Major League Baseball, opposing slugging percentage, he's first in Major League Baseball, 175, opposing OPS, second in Major League Baseball right now. So he's one of the best pitchers right now in baseball. So deserving for Kirby Yates. All right, so there you go. 2 Rangers getting some All-Star love. That is our Rangers report.
The Rangers Report is brought to you by Texas Truck and Trailer, your premier truck accessory dealer.
All right, we're coming to time to get to Rod's rant. We'll go behind, get to the break here, and then we'll get into Rod's rant of the day on the other side. We'll talk football. Why is scoring first so important in football? And also, we'll talk about the most fertile recruiting and most fertile regions of talent, I should say, football wise, in the country. All of that and more right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. I'm Lifetime Longhorn. Rod Davis coming back on the horn. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. Time to get into Rod's rant of the day. I got a couple of topics that I want to hit while we got some time here. So the first one is a stat, actually a group of stats that I saw from Warren Sharp. Does a good job, data scientist. Gives you stats about the NFL when you're talking about Sharp Football or his own personal account. And he did the research in the last 10 years on the winning percentage of teams who score first, touchdown first, field goal first, however you score. You score safety first, whatever. You put points on the board first, and he basically correlate that to win percentage. And he found that teams who score first in the NFL over the last 10 years win 64% of the time. It's a pretty high success rate. So you just score first, you win 64% of the time. He looked at the teams who've won the most games when scoring first over the last 2 years. Baltimore, Philadelphia is 23, Cleveland's 22, along with San Fran and Detroit. The Cowboys are at 21. The Chiefs are at 19, along with Jacksonville. So he laid out all the teams and which ones were most successful. Speaking of Kansas City, how about this week, Kansas City? The Kansas City Chiefs 18-1 when scoring first the last 2 years. and 7-8 though when they allow the opponent to score first. So 18-1, they score first. Good chance Kansas City's going to win. And they do score first a lot of times because they got Patrick Mahomes, best quarterback in the game, best play caller in Andy Reid in the game. And so they end up scoring first because he's also a brilliant play designer and play caller and usually designs a really good script. Cowboys also 10-0 when scoring first. Last year, they went 2-5. You go. Let's see. So last year they went 2-5 when allowing their opponent to score first. Yeah. So they are pretty much the epitome of this stat. I mean, they embody that stat. You score first, you win most of the time. There are some teams who are outliers to this. The Chargers, they scored first in 11 of 17 games last year, but went 5-6 in those games. 0-6 though when allowing opponents to score first. So it halfway holds for them. They lost a lot of games when they allowed the points to score first, but when they scored first, didn't necessarily work out for them. The Bears are like that too. Over the last 2 years, Chicago has scored first in 18 of 34 games, but just 8-10 in those games. So on just 44% of those games. And we're 2-14 in all other games. So the Bears are just bad. But the Bears scored first in 10 games last year, but went 6-4 in those 10 games. But 1-6 when allowing the point to score first. So it still tracks, but just doesn't. They're not on the. They don't benefit from it. Some of these teams don't benefit from it as much, but they're definitely on the downside. They are definitely on the downside of it when they allow their opponents to score first. So 64% of the time you score first, you win football games in the NFL. I think the reason for that is I think ultimately it's confidence. I think it's just ultimately deflating when you're riding the wave of positive vibes and confident thoughts. All right. And the team is confident, maybe even overconfident. It can be extremely deflating. And I think some teams are more resilient than others. Quarterbacks more resilient than others. Some coaches are more resilient than others, and they could be more effective. And I think psychologically, it's not as deflating, depressing for them when they are playing at it with a deficit or playing from a deficit. And some teams, they're made to be front runners and play with a lead, and they don't do well when they have to play from, and the 49ers are actually kind of like that. The 49ers don't play well from a deficit. I mean, go look at over the years with Shano, his teams, and go look at how often they win games when they have to come from behind. It doesn't happen very often. They've done it. I'm not saying they don't do it, but they're built to be a front runner because once they get a lead on you, then they just pound the rock, run the football, and they drain the clock, limit your possessions, and then that's when they're up, you get desperate, you decide I have to throw to get back into the game. Their defensive line is very formidable, and that's when the complementary football takes effect. And everybody's kind of got their own version of that. So scoring first, I think I always compared it to it's a confidence thing. I think you score first, you got a lot of confidence, you got a lot of swagger, you feel good about yourself. And it's amazing if you start something really well, how often it'll help you have more confidence, even if you have a pitfall or even if you stumble along the way. The good start it'll give you psychologically the motivation you need to overcome. It's like, no, I know I can do it. I had a good start. I'm okay. But a bad start can often send you down a spiral as opposed to a good start. So I think mostly it's psychological. My comparison was, if you ever been broke before, and most people were broke, you probably gone out when you're broke, and you're going out right after payday. Going out with money in your pocket, you act different. You probably talk a little bit differently. You're more likely to be the life of the party. Probably a lot more generous. Your game's a lot better. When you're hitting on the ladies or even in response to somebody hitting on you, you're more confident in your delivery. Your whole entire, I bet you your shoulders and your posture is probably better overall when you have money in your pocket as opposed to when you don't. Because you're a little bit more insecure about yourself. You're not willing to be the life of the party because, hey man, you might not be able to pay for it being the life of the party. You're probably not hitting on as many chicks when you go out just because you don't have the confidence you once did. it's the difference. There may be subtle differences, but you're a different person with the cash in your pocket as opposed to somebody who's going out without that money. And I think you play like that. When you play with a lead, you got money in your pocket. When you're playing at a deficit, it's kind of like playing without that money in your pocket. You're not as confident. You think you are, but you're not. It's maybe subconscious more than anything. All right. So another football related topic that I wanted to get to here. And this one, I couldn't really figure out the kind of underlying theory as to what, after identifying this trend, what caused this trend. So I was looking at this new study. Football Scoop is where I saw it published, and they do a good job. So they're looking at states that produce the most NFL players per million people. Usually they do this thing per capita, but they did it per million people in that state. And I thought it was pretty interesting some of the results they found. So essentially, the premise is they looked at an average. So the average number of NFL players produced per NFL state per million people. And then they looked at every state compared to that average and see if you were underrepresented in terms of compared to the average, or your state disproportionately produced more NFL players than the average per million, and see which states were overrepresented there and which states, disproportionately produced fewer NFL players than the average per million people. So I found there were 21 states basically that produced more NFL players than the average. And I was a little surprised when I looked at 21 states, and some of these states just where they were located, and others just really how these different regions were divided up. So here's the fun part. So there are 21 states that actually were higher than the average. The highest is Louisiana. Louisiana, and I've been saying this for years, for the last 7-8 years, probably going on 10 now. Louisiana is always top 3 NFL players produced per capita, period. It's just, it is something about Louisiana. Louisiana is easily one of the most fertile recruiting grounds, fertile pockets of talent in the country when it comes to football. And based on this study, it's number one. 15 players per million people. Mississippi is second, 14 and a half. Alabama third. Georgia is fourth. There was a trend here. But this is where the trend breaks up. So that's all SEC country. Doesn't surprise anybody. The southeastern region of the United States is easily the most fertile football development ground in the country for the last 15, 20, 30 years, probably even going back further than that. So that explains the top 4. But then 5th on here is Iowa. Yeah, Iowa jumps into, if you're looking at it. So Iowa, as recently, you say based on this study, because they're doing it, remember, the per million people, and they got Iowa right there in the top 5 per million people. That was the one that was a little surprising to me. And then you'll notice, if you keep going down, then they have, I think, DC. Remember I told you guys about DC being one of the most fertile metro areas for producing NFL talent. Remember last year I went over, or at least last draft, I went over how they made it into my top 10, the DC area, just because they, in a lot, since 2020, I've been keeping up with it since 2020. The DC area now has jumped into my top 10 for producing most NFL players. And I think it's a big part of it is because, man, DC, that Maryland area, is just highly underrated when it comes to NFL talent or producing NFL talent. So DC's in there, Florida, and then Hawaii is also in there. I guess because of the Polynesian culture. And we talked about this too. You have a lot of, you're talking about the hit rates of that certain culture, and I think that's where you're looking at the Hawaiian influence there. But there are 4 out of those 21 states. Essentially, there are 4 areas, 4 regions of the country that are all considered, I think, your hotbeds for developing NFL talent. Of course, there's southeastern, United States. That's your SEC country. There are 9 states essentially that are all bordering each other, and that includes Texas now too. If you want to include Texas as your own separate region, just because Texas is so damn big, you could do that. If you really wanted to, you could do that. But if you wanted to look at Texas as part of the SEC, which technically it is now, it would be 9 states, all of them bordering Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, Florida, South Carolina, North Carolina, Tennessee, all bordering each other. And they are all above the average, overly represented, if you will, in producing NFL talent. That's your SEC country in a nutshell. That's it. It's 9 states, and no other region in the country even comes close to have that many states producing that much NFL talent. But then, in addition to the SEC, then you got a Midwest pocket, which is Michigan, Indiana, Ohio, all producing NFL talent above the average per million people, 5.4, 6.2, 5.9, and then include Iowa in there. No, I take that back. That's Midwest. That's Heartland. So Midwest is just Indiana, Ohio, and Michigan. Then you got a Heartland, which is included with Iowa. That's Iowa. That's Utah, Wyoming, and Nebraska. Iowa is at 12.5. They're an outlier all by themselves. That's just that is among the top 5 best per million numbers in this study. And there was one of those SEC states. But then there's Utah, Wyoming, and Nebraska, 5.5, 5.2, 6.1. And then there's Iowa, as I pointed out, 12.5. That's another pocket. And they're all bordering states as well. Utah, Wyoming, Nebraska, Iowa, all border each other. And then you go look at, like I just told you, the Midwest, Indiana, Ohio, Michigan, all bordering each other. So there's a Midwest pocket, there's a Heartland pocket, and there's an SEC pocket. And all of those pockets have states that all border each other. And then on the East Coast, there is DC, Maryland, Delaware, and Jersey, 5.5, 6.1, 6.8, and 8.7. DC's 8.7. And those states, territories, all border each other as well. So it's crazy. I don't know how it worked out that way. And then there's Hawaii, separate. Okay, Hawaii doesn't have anything to border it. All right, but it's like I said, all of these areas: Midwest, East Coast, Heartland, and the Southeastern Conference, essentially South SEC territory. They all have the states that border each other. They all are connecting states, pretty much. That I believe there's definitely something that there's a reason for this, some sociological reason that I'm missing, that all those pockets are all in bordering states. Like none of this is divided up really. And every other state, like I said, these are 21 of the states that are producing NFL players above the average. Every other state pretty much is below the average. Producing NFL. There's only one state that has 0 players currently on NFL rosters, and that's Vermont, as we pointed out. But yeah, I went and looked at that DC area, Baltimore. I mean, Baltimore, I went, you guys remember I did this study a while ago. I went and looked at metro areas that produced the most NFL talent. I didn't do per capita. I didn't do per million people. I just looked up drafted players since 2020, and I looked at metro areas. Baltimore in my top 5 now. So that's kind of that East Coast area, and New York is in my top 10. New York was in my top 7. So based on my research on metro areas, New York and Baltimore both end up in the top 10 for that East Coast, those East Coast pockets. So I guess you could kind of do it by metro areas the way I did it too. But I think you would have more separation. You wouldn't have as many, basically has as many obviously links to each other as you do when you do it by the per million people. But yeah, it's interesting that Iowa and the heartland jumps out more than I would have expected. Utah, Wyoming, New England, and Iowa. Everything else is predictable. The predictable pocket in the Midwest, Michigan, Ohio, Indiana. I think everybody would predict that. Maybe Indiana surprised you a little bit. The SEC states, that makes sense. And like I said, the East Coast pockets, I could have predicted that just from my research about metro areas producing the most NFL talent, because I was surprised when I saw Baltimore and New York rise into my top 10. So I could have guessed that. And now that New York is probably a Jersey crossover there too. They call it the tri-state area there. So that would have made sense. The one that really surprised me here that I did not see coming was that heartland pocket of talent there. Utah, Wyoming, Nebraska, and Iowa. Who saw that coming? Yeah, Iowa. Jumping up there, producing a lot. And I wonder how many of those are linemen as opposed to skill talent from Iowa. That's the next study I'm going to try to find, and maybe I can rabbit hole it if I have time, in terms of the positions from these different regions and pockets around the country. Are they producing a certain position disproportionately at a higher rate than other areas of the country? And it's definitely the case because Texas and quarterbacks. I mean, that just jumps to mind. Texas is producing more quarterbacks than every other state. And I'd like to know if Iowa's producing, Iowa and Nebraska, are they producing more linemen than everybody else? Is that, what I mean? They always said the corn-fed guys, are they coming from Iowa and Nebraska? It'd be very interesting to see if that is indeed the case. All right, we come back. We'll have we'll have a segment of Who Said That. That's when my man Patrick plays bits of audio from the sports world, some and from beyond. And based on the context clues and based on the familiarity of the voice, hopefully you can recall and identify who said that. We'll have that when we come back right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. I'm lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers coming back on the horn. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. It is a smooth Monday edition of the Rodcast. Thanks to my man Patrick Davis and his efforts trying to make your transition from the stress-free, fun-filled holiday weekend to the stress-filled, hectic work week. He tries to make sure that it's a smooth transition for you because you get a little bit bumpy with the meetings, and the traffic, and oh man, you probably got extra meetings. You missed time last week, and it's going to be a very stressful week for a lot of folks out there. So my man Patrick wants to hook you up with a Smooth Soul Monday to make sure it is a smooth as possible of a transition for you. So we appreciate him. Also, go check out the topic for the Big Fat Poll today. That is up as well on X. You can go check it out. Which big free agent signing will make it further in the playoffs next year? And right now, Klay Thompson clearly in the lead. 60% of the respondents to the poll believe Klay Thompson will be the free agent signing that takes his team further than the rest of the free agent signings so far that we've seen in the NBA. So there you go, NBA discussion today. So thanks to my man Patrick for that. Now it's time to get into Who Said That. That's when Patrick plays some pieces of audio based on the context clues or familiarity of the voice. Hopefully you can recall and identify who said that.
To be surprised that you actually won a game. But what I would have changed was, okay, this part of me that I actually still love, like when I see these young players, I see like Patrick, out there at quarterback running around, laughing, having fun. I'm like, I used to be like that. What the hell happened to me? And I just got too serious. And but again, I can only look back and think, okay, if I do it again, which I'll never do it again, I would be different. But the reality is you can't. So you just learn from it and go, okay, now next phase of life, enjoy it a little more.
Oh, Tom Brady saying he got too serious toward the end of his career. Should have been a little bit more fun-loving toward the end of his career. I disagree with Tom on that one. I know he would know better than me. I mean, it's Tom's life, not mine. But I don't know if you win all the championship if you're loving fun that much.
I don't know. Happy Luka
MJ didn't embrace that much fun.
No, but Happy Luka, man. Look at Happy Luka.
Champion. It doesn't have any championships.
No, but that was because Mad Luka
what
came
the championships,
back.
Happy Luka?
No, but Mad Luka came back in that
I
series.
know, but I said for Tom Brady's better with a chip on his shoulder. There's no doubt. Tom Brady's better with a chip on his shoulder. He's better when he's angry. He's better when he's got something to prove. He's better when he's upset. That's not fun-loving. Fun-loving, Tom, is, hey, I got a lot of money and I'm married to a supermodel and my kids are beautiful and great.
He's not married to a supermodel anymore.
Basically considered the GOAT. Exactly. And that's honestly, that's when he won another title again. It's basically when his marriage started crumbling and he's basically, I got something to prove. My wife doesn't think I'm going to be a champion. I think he was kind of out to prove, like, no, wifey, I am sacrificing my family, but it is to win a title. And I will win a championship. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I think Tom Brady's better with the chip on his shoulder, with the angst. And I think if he was fun-loving, he would have prioritized other things, which, by the way, it's perfectly healthy and rational to prioritize other things other than winning. But that obsession is what we admire about him and MJ, that competitive sickness. They didn't have fun doing it because they were obsessed with greatness and excellence. And you can have fun doing it, but it's tougher. It's tougher to be that fun-loving. It requires a certain focus that I don't know if it's going to be a fun-filled focus.
Yeah, I think you can have fun sometimes.
It's
you
just
crystallized, there's
deadly focus.
Yeah, there's times where you got to take it super serious, and then there's times where you can have a little bit more fun. When you're up by 35 points in a game, you can smile and laugh and not go yell at your teammates on the bench. At that point, you can say, okay, let's have some fun. It's week 4 of the season. We're playing really well. We're winning by a bunch. Let's have fun. You can do that. And that maybe sometimes where he was too serious and going back on the bench. And how do you get a false start? Man, we're fine. We still scored a touchdown on the drive. How do you get a false start, though?
I know. Still, that having everybody else with that kind of focus, too, every day, that's how you build dynasties.
Yeah.
I mean, like, the fun-loving, fun-filled stuff is good, but having everybody focus, that's the F word that I want. The fun one. Focus. All right. Good stuff there, Patrick, all day long. Good stuff. We appreciate you. Thank you guys out there for listening. We appreciate you as well. Remember, the revolution will not be televised. We'll be talking about it right here on the Rodcast. We appreciate you guys. We love you. We also mean that for real. Join us tomorrow, same time, same channel. Until next time, hook 'em and peace.